Chapter 48:19. In the void on the left far away, in a vast land with a radius of 10 billion miles, the chi was in complete chaos, and endless energy was raging. This was the terrifying scene caused by the fierce battle between three powerful primordial supremes. To be precise, among the three primordial supremes, two of them were being beaten up. They were the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock. The battle had lasted for half the time it took for an incense stick to burn. From the beginning, the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock were in an absolute disadvantage. Although they had more people, they were all first-ranked desolate venerables, while the skeleton avatar they were fighting was seventh-ranked desolate venerables. And due to the majestic chi and blood within Pang Da's terrifying body, his true battle strength was enhanced by another level. He had already reached a level where he could stand shoulder to shoulder with a rank 8 desolate supremacy. Half an hour, the time it took to burn a stick of incense, was not long. But it was not short either. The nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock, who were in an absolute disadvantage from the beginning, were in a very sorry state. Their huge bodies were full of blood and swollen lumps, which looked shocking and made people gasp. No. After all, they were powerful primordial supremes, and the skeleton avatar did not have a top-grade treasure like the big-headed black stick, and it did not even control the nine-colored flame sea. Although he could use the fallen sky bow and other supreme theurgies, it was not worth it at all. That was why the skeleton avatar had never used it. Because of this, although the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock were in a very sorry state, they did not die, nor were they seriously injured. These two guys were old foxes who had lived from the end of the primordial era to the present, and they had rich battle experience. They could often avoid a thunderous attack at the most critical moment. Even if the skeleton avatar punched with all its strength, it could have killed them in one fell swoop. But in the end, they would only be slightly injured. Big. Although these two old fellows had been beaten black and blue all this while, their bones were still very tough. Perhaps it was because they had been abused more than once, and had long gotten used to it. At this moment their fighting spirit was high, and they felt as if they were getting braver the more they fought. Yes, to be precise, it should be. The more the battle went on, the braver they got. Roar! Screech! Bao Yuan, it's impossible for this avatar of yours to annihilate me and Qing Pang. You're destined to return empty-handed in today's battle. That's right. Including this time, Xue Jiao and I have been abused by you 3 times. We will remember this debt. In the future, when the other desolate supremacies in the clan wake up one after another, there will be a time to settle the score. Up until now, although they had been tortured quite badly, at least they hadn't been seriously injured. Naturally, they were even further away from the so-called death. Such a result made the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock calm down. They actually started to clamor again, roaring like thunder. Xiao! Boom! Rumble! Before their roars had even died down, the skeleton avatar turned its head to look at them, and a faint light flashed through its eyes, following which it instantly disappeared into the distance. Several at the same time, he appeared between the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock. Without saying a word, he threw out 2 punches. Bang! Bang! Roar! Roar! Caught off guard, the 2 old men were punched again. In an instant, they let out an incomparably mournful howl. This was the full-force attack of a rank 8 desolate supremacy. If it hit them, even if they were rank 1 desolate supremacy, they would still end up exploding and dying. However, these 2 old fellows were too slippery. Their divine sense for danger was too sensitive. Even if this attack was definitely caught off guard, they still managed to dodge to the side at the most critical moment. They weren't even hit by this punch. It was only a slight scratch. Such a result made the skeleton avatar frown again. Just as his shoulders shook and he was about to step forward again to give the 2 old fellows another punch, the skeleton avatar seemed to have sensed something. His figure suddenly paused, and he turned around to look behind him. Xiao! At this moment, along with an extremely sharp sound of breaking through the air, a black shadow was shooting over at an extremely fast speed. It was too fast, and in the blink of an eye, it was already close. It was the black fog avatar of Yi Xian's 3 blood sea avatars. Body the cultivation aura emanating from it had also reached the 7th stage. Look at that. Seeing this scene, the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock were shocked. They subconsciously raised their heads to look at the edge of the Alliance starfield in the distance. In the past 15 minutes, they had been focused on dealing with the skeleton avatar. They had no time to spare the slightest bit of divine sense to pay attention to the situation at the edge of the star field in the distance. Here when they saw the black fog avatar suddenly shooting over, they realized that something big might have happened over there. On the line, the edge of the Star Alliance's planetary system was completely empty. All of the Alliance's battleships and elites had retreated into the system. But the nine-headed serpent and the Cyan Rock didn't know that. Such as now that they saw that the edge of the star field, where there was originally a huge warship fleet, had become empty in a short period of time, their hearts trembled, and they immediately roared. Roar. Screech. Damn you, violent ape, what did your black fog avatar do? Where is the Alliance army under my command? If you dare to hurt my clansmen, I will definitely not let you off for today's matter. Shio. Phew. Before he had a chance to cry out in alarm, the black mist clone that was already over 100 million kilometers away abruptly waved a hand through the air as a cold light flashed through its eyes. With a sharp sound of breaking through the air, a nine-colored light that looked like a firefly soared in the wind. In an instant, it turned into a majestic nine-colored flame sea, sweeping toward the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock. If let this flame sea seal around them, coupled with the addition of the black fog avatar, even if these two old guys had the cultivation strength of the desolate master, the outcome of today's battle would be unpredictable. Such as, most likely, it was because he was unwilling to die here. Look at that. Seeing this scene, these thoughts flashed in his mind. The nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock, who were about to shoot out, suddenly stopped. Immediately afterward, almost subconsciously, the two of them channeled the power in their body to the extreme at the same time. They tried their best to retreat quickly. You only want to leave now? A faint light flashed in the eyes of the bone avatar, and the extremely cold voice of divine thought came out instantly. Unfortunately, it's too late. Boom! Rumble. Hiss. Almost at the same time, tens of thousands of miles behind the nine-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock who were retreating rapidly, a crack suddenly appeared in the void along with the earth-shattering roar of thunder. Two faint sounds of breaking through the air came, then two rays of light shot out from the crack. They expanded in the wind, and in the blink of an eye, they had reached thousands of miles. They were the bloody unicorn and the 9U demon crocodile that had disappeared for a long time. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version reading website. M. Chapter 4820. Boom! Hiss. Tens of thousands of miles away, along with the earth-shattering roar of thunder, a crack suddenly appeared in the void. Two faint sounds of breaking through the air could be heard, and then two fine rays of light shot out from the crack. Under the wind, they had already reached tens of thousands of miles in the blink of an eye, extremely huge. They were the long-lost scarlet unicorn and nine-hell demon alligator. These two old fellows were the same as the void tortoise, golden divine dragon, and desolate yaksha, supreme experts who had existed since the beginning of the desolate era. Although their cultivation strength was not as strong as the void tortoise and the other peak 9th stage desolate venerables, they had also reached the 7th stage and were late-stage desolate venerables. But not long ago, their cultivation strength had only recovered to the 4th order desolate venerable realm, which was still quite a distance away from the peak of the 7th order desolate venerable realm. But now, in just 2 years, these two old fellows had some kind of opportunity, and their cultivation realm had skyrocketed again. Although they had not recovered to the late-stage 7th order, they were already 6th order desolate venerable realm. In terms of realm, compared to Yi Xian's 3 Blood Sea avatars, they were only 1 level weaker. Dang! However, if the 3 Blood Sea avatars were to be considered, then even if the current blood-colored Qilin and the 9U demon crocodile were to be restored to the 6th rank desolate venerables, compared to the 3 Blood Sea avatars, there was still a gap of 2 ranks. If the 3 Blood Sea avatars were to be considered, if it was just the 2 of them, Yi Xian's 3 Blood Sea clones would be able to fight 3 against 2. Although they wouldn't be able to kill the Blood Qilin and the 9-Hell Demon Alligator, or even severely injure them, they would still be able to beat them up. But now, in addition to these 2 old fellows, there was also a 7th Order Blood-Devouring Lion, and 2 First Order Desolate Venerables, the 9-Headed Blood Crocodile and the Azure Sky Rock. It could be said that the situation of the battlefield had a huge reversal in an instant. Previously, Yi Xian had the absolute advantage. With the violent ape holding back the bloodthirsty war lion, the skeleton doppelganger and the black mist doppelganger were fighting the 9-headed blood dragon and the azure sky rock. Under such circumstances, coupled with the addition of the 9-colored sea of flames, it was absolutely not impossible to kill the 9-headed blood WYRM and azure sky rock on the spot today. and the possibility of this happening was very high. But now it was completely different. Although Yi Xian's 3 Blood Sea avatars had the terrifying battle strength of an 8th level Desolate Venerable, the other side had 5 Desolate Venerable level experts. The Crimson Unicorn, the 9 Netherworld Demon Crocodile, the Blood-Devouring War Lion, the 9-Headed Blood Dragon and the Azure Sky Rock. Among them, the Blood-Devouring War Lion had late-stage combat strength, while the Blood Unicorn and the 9 Phantom Demon Crocodile were only one stage away from late-stage Stage 7 combat strength. The 9-Headed Blood Dragon and the Azure Sky Rock were more than enough to make up for this difference. If they were to really engage in an all-out battle, the battle strength of both sides would basically be on par. As such, there was no need to continue this battle. Because to Yi Xian, even if he had the upper hand and could not kill one of them, it would be pointless and meaningless to fight. Clang! However, if he were to use the Fallen Sky Bow, not to mention the 9-Headed Blood Dragon and the Azure Sky Rock, even the Blood Unicorn, the 9 Netherworld Demon Crocodile and the Blood-Devouring War Lion could be killed by his arrow. But that was completely unnecessary. Yi Xian did not want to reveal the Fallen Sky Bow. This was his trump card, and now was not the time to reveal it. Roar! Screech! At this moment, following the sudden arrival, the Blood Unicorn and the 9 Netherworld Demon Crocodile's consciousness immediately locked onto Yi Xian's skeleton doppelganger and the Black Mist doppelganger. The energy in their bodies surged, and they each let out a shocking roar and howl. Bao Yuan, after 2 years, we finally meet again. Although your cultivation strength has increased by 1 level, and you are now a late-stage 7th stage Baron Supremacy, but our cultivation has also increased from the 4th stage to the 6th stage. The gap between us has narrowed. We have been looking forward to this battle for a long time. Although the 2 of us are still not your match, but if we join forces with the War Lion, the Blood Dragon and the Azure Rock, our overall strength will not be weaker than yours. We have nothing to fear. The 2 of us are rootless duckweeds. From now on, we will stay in the Star Alliance. Bao Yuan, your era is over. With the passage of time, the 5 of us in the Star Alliance are now not weaker than you. In time, when our cultivation strength increases by another level, it will be the time of your magic hall's destruction. Roar! You are just losers. Even if you join forces, it won't change anything. In response to these provocative words, the skeleton doppelganger raised its head and roared angrily. The consciousness doppelganger's voice echoed through the void. Don't forget, although your overall combat strength can already contend with this king's, and even be on par with him, this king is only 1 person, and there are 5 of you. You still have the nerve to be so arrogant? Don't you feel ashamed? As he spoke, Here, the skeleton doppelganger turned its head and looked in another direction. 10 billion miles away, Bao Yuan and the Blood-Devouring War Lion were engaged in a fierce battle. The void was in chaos, and even the consciousness doppelganger couldn't detect anything. The intensity of the battle was too strong. There is no need to continue this battle, for I have already achieved my goal. Whoosh! As the skeleton doppelganger finished speaking, it turned its head and looked in the direction of the battle. In the distance, a blood-red light shot towards it. It was the Blood-Devouring War Lion fighting the Blood-Devouring War Lion, Bao Yuan. Walala, with the arrival of Bao Yuan, Yi Xian's 3 Blood Sea doppelganger instantly collapsed, turning into a rain of blood that merged into the vast blood sea under his feet. Almost at the same time, the vast blood sea also quickly condensed into a point. Then, Bao Yuan, who had just disappeared, once again stepped out of the void. Although his body was only about 3 meters in size, the aura of cultivation that emanated from his body was incomparably majestic. He was actually a 7th-order Desolate Master. Roar! Bao Yuan, where are you going? Stay and fight for another 800 rounds. At this moment, an earth-shattering roar suddenly rang out from a distance in that direction. Anger before the roar fell. The huge figure of the Blood-Devouring War Lion had already appeared from the end of the void. It was thousands of miles long, but it was obviously in a sorry state. Its entire body was covered with swollen blood bags of various sizes. It was a ghastly sight. You have already been tortured by me to this extent, and you still have the face to call yourself arrogant? Looking over, a hint of disdain flashed in Bao Yuan's eyes. He mocked loudly, then he turned around. With a shake of his shoulder, his entire figure turned into a faint light and blasted away at an extremely fast speed. However, his consciousness doppelganger's voice still echoed in the void for a long time. The 5 of you better work harder and raise your cultivation strength. Otherwise, the next time we fight, will definitely kill 2 or 3 of you. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 48:21. Swoosh. A faint sound of something breaking through the air was heard, and a figure came from afar. It was Yi Xian. At this time, Yi Xian was in the form of a violent ape, but his body was only about 3 feet tall. He was still in the state of the 9th transformation of the 9 changes of demonic ape, so his aura was at the late stage of the 7th order of the remote antiquity Supreme Master. Now, the situation in the fragment of untainted land was completely different from a few months ago. Originally among the 5 alliances, the Ferocious Beast Alliance had been eliminated, and the Supreme Holy Land in the hearts of all the Ferocious Beasts' forbidden areas, which was the Grey Light Ball, had disappeared. It took countless ferocious beasts to the Hongmeng Void. As for the Survivors Alliance, all of them had surrendered to the Magic Hall. Yi Xian already knew about this, but he didn't immediately send all of them to the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun, where the Magic Hall was located. By even the Sky River Star Domain was still outside, and the countless experts in the Remnant Star Domain were not in a hurry to receive them immediately. Among the other 3 alliances, he had just visited the Star Alliance. He had killed or surrendered the 25 great beings of the remote antiquity Supreme Master, which had completely collapsed. Although the Survivors Alliance now had 5 desolate masters after the addition of the Scarlet Unicorn and the 9 secret demon crocodile, there were only a few desolate masters left. However, there were only a few dozen Universe Supreme beings and Universe Masters below Baron Master. The great beings who were capable of overseeing an area had been cut off. It could be said that there was a shortage of new talents. This, even if the Scarlet Unicorn, the 9 secret demon crocodile, the 9 secret demon crocodile, the blood-devouring lion, the 9-headed blood dragon, and the Cyan Sky Rock joined forces, they could fight Yi Xian's 3 bloody sea bodies to a draw. However, considering the safety of countless subordinates in the Star Alliance, they would definitely not start a war in a short time. At least, they would wait until the blood dragon, the Cyan Rock, and the battle lion had moved to the ancestral land, and new great beings of the remote antiquity Supreme Master or great beings had awakened. Once the war started, there would be at least a great being guarding the headquarters of the Alliance. Only then would they consider the war against the Magic Hall. After that, there were only 2 alliances left. Human beings. The Human Federation was currently locked in a fierce battle with the newly arrived Heaven's Legacy race, and Yi Xian had no intention of joining in on the fun. At the very least, he had no intention of doing so until he had reaped enough benefits. This is the arrival of the Divination Clan could be considered a stroke of bad luck on the part of the Human Federation. They had created a giant wormhole that allowed imperishable stars to pass through, allowing the imperishable 9 stars, the Sky Extinction Palace, and the Temple of Glory, the former headquarters of the 10,000 Net Federation, to arrive smoothly. But because of this, the Celestial Legacy race was also drawn over. Yes, Yi Xian did not plan to get too involved in this matter. He had to destroy the Heaven's Legacy race, but he had no plans to ally with the Human Federation. Although Yi Xian was also a human, he didn't have a good impression of the 2 camps of the human race, be it the Immortal Dynasty of the Science and Technology camp or the 10 Ultimate Celestial Palace of the Cultivation camp. For example, the Shenyuan family, the Duanmu family, and the other factions and clans that were originally part of the human race's Science and Technology camp and were on good terms with Yi Xian had all left the Human Federation and were now in the Sky River Quadrant. For example, therefore, even from an emotional point of view, Yi Xian did not have to care about the Human Federation's survival at all. Moreover, although the Heaven's Legacy race was powerful, the Human Federation was not weak either. Their overall strength was definitely one of the top in this void fragment, and even the Magic Hall could not compare to them. For this reason, in addition, under the command of the Imperial Preceptor of the Eternal Dynasty, heir of the human race's Science and Technology camp, there was still a powerful army of the mechanical race. Now, it had not been exposed. Based on this point alone, it could be concluded that the true strength of the Human Race Federation had not been displayed at all. Therefore, it was impossible for Yi Xian to be involved in the war between the Human Federation and the Heaven's Legacy race at this time. He would let them fight each other and spend some time in that distant star quadrant first. Apart from the Human Federation, there was only the alliance of 10,000 races left. The alliance of 10,000 races was formed by the slave races of the original first universe. To be honest, the space rats, the hell ants, and the giant ferocious race had once formed an alliance with Yi Xian. But now, the demons, the blood mosquitoes, and the other races and forces that had formed an alliance with Yi Xian were still in the Sky River Quadrant, firmly allied with the victorious Return Army and the Sky River Army under his command. However, the space rats, the hell ants, and the giant ferocious race had long forgotten about their alliance, as if it had never happened at all. This was good too. Otherwise, on account of their friendship in the past, Yi Xian would be too embarrassed to attack the alliance of 10,000 races now. Wrong. His next target was the alliance of 10,000 races. A month ago, the alliance of 10,000 races had received reinforcements from the first universe of the starry sky, and its combat strength had greatly increased. Like the Human Federation and the Star Alliance, it had also announced that it would withdraw from the Magic Hall, and from then on, it would have nothing to do with it. This time, the space rats, the hell ants, the giant ferocious race, and the evil slime race had also migrated. The Alliance's forces had increased by 40 billion battleships, 24 late-stage mighty figures, and 4 middle-stage primordial supreme figures. First previously, the reason why Yi Xian raided the Star Alliance was to try and see if he could kill the 9-headed blood dragon or the Azure Sky Rock. But this was only a secondary purpose. His main purpose was still the 25 primordial supreme figures in the Star Alliance. Such as today, there were only a few level 29 desolate supreme pills left in his hands. Once the generals under his command made a breakthrough in their cultivation and rushed into the primordial supreme realm, they would return to the primordial supreme realm. At that time, the generals under his command would need more level 29 desolate supreme pills, which would greatly increase the number of level 29 desolate supreme pills. Just these few desolate supreme treasured pills were clearly not enough to be distributed. As such, therefore, Yi Xian planned to take advantage of the current situation to kill as many primordial supreme pills as possible. In this way, when he was in need of level 29 desolate supreme pills in the future, he could refine them at any time and solve the urgent need in an instant. With this purpose in mind, his trip to the Star Alliance this time could be said to be a great harvest. The original 9 blood essences of the primordial supreme pills had soared to 25. But this was still not enough. 25 blood essences of the primordial supreme pills, even if 4 of them were of the highest quality. According to Yi Xian's calculation, refining 25 desolate supreme pills was a sure thing. The probability of refining 26 pills was about 80%. 27 pills. Only 60% was left. 2. The probability of refining 18 pills was directly reduced to less than 40%. According to his estimation, he would need at least 40 level 29 desolate supreme pills to meet his needs in the future. Therefore, he still had to kill the primordial supreme beings. This time, after leaving the Star Alliance, he did not immediately return to the Magic Hall in the forbidden land of Rising Sunday. His only purpose was to strike while the iron was hot and go to the starfield where the Alliance of 10,000 races was located. He wanted to kill the 24 primordial supreme beings that had just arrived not long ago. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4822. The starfield occupied by the Alliance of 10,000 races was located on the other side of the Chaos Fragment. It could be said that it was extremely far away. However, this distance was not a problem for Yi Xian, whose peak battle strength had reached the 7th Order Supreme of the Ancients. He didn't even need to use his full strength. He just casually skimmed through the void and it only took him a few days to arrive at the starfield's destination. News of everything that had happened in the Star Alliance had spread throughout the Your Wilds fragment of heaven and earth. In this vast expanse of space, all the major forces had sent out a large number of small fleets of scouts to roam about, passing information to each other at a speed that was even faster than Supreme Primordial could travel through space with his physical body. When the news spread, the entire void was in an uproar. This period of time had not been peaceful at all. Undercurrents had been surging in the void of the fragment of untainted land. Some of the weaker clans and forces even began to miss the 2 years of peace that had ended not long ago. Everything was very good at first, but the peace that lasted for 2 years was hurriedly ended because of the arrival of the reinforcements of the Starfield, the Alliance of 10,000 races, and the Human Federation. In the eyes of the major races and forces, the most aggrieved was the Beast Alliance. They were implicated because of this and were implicated. The furious master of the Magic Hall vented his anger on them. In the end, the entire alliance was annihilated and expelled. However, the Survivors' Alliance was still very lucky. The master of the Magic Hall seemed to have little interest in the survivors of the Ancients. When the 5 great alliances joined forces to seize the Magic Hall, the Survivors' Alliance was the only one who escaped unscathed. Such as, today, the master of the Magic Hall was furious. The Beast Alliance suffered, but the Survivors' Alliance was unscathed. As for the other 3 alliances that started this turmoil, The Human Federation reaped what they had sown. Now that they were engaged in a battle with the Tianji clan, they simply had no time to care about the actions of the Magic Hall. Star the Sky Alliance had already learned their lesson. Although the blood-devouring War Lion, Nine-Headed Blood Flood Dragon, and Azure Sky Great Pung had not fallen, and their cultivation had also increased sharply. Now, with the addition of the Blood Chelan and 9 Netherworld Devil Alligator, they now had a total of 5 Desolate Venerable level experts. But this time, they had lost 25 Primordial Masters. 16 of them had been slain by the Demon Hall Master, while the other 9 had turned traitor. They had stolen 90 million strongholds and countless people from the Star Alliance as proof of their allegiance. They had probably returned to the Forbidden Land of Rising by now. After the news spread, all the clans and forces fixed their eyes on the Myriad Races Alliance at once and dispatched a large number of scout fleets to the Star area where the Myriad Races Alliance was located so as to investigate the follow-up changes at any time. As far as they were concerned, the Star Alliance had learned its lesson from the 3 main culprits who had announced their withdrawal from the Demon Hall and caused the Void to once again become unstable. The Federation was in a good mood. The Master of the Magic Hall couldn't have asked for more. He was happy to sit and watch the show. He probably couldn't be bothered with them for a while. Well, his next target was obviously the Alliance of 10,000 Tribes. In fact, even the higher-ups of the Alliance thought so. Based on the Master of the Magic Hall's violent temper, since he had made his move this time, he definitely wouldn't stop. The Alliance would definitely be his next target. With this in mind, as soon as the news spread, the higher-ups of the Alliance held an emergency meeting to discuss. They quickly came to a conclusion and immediately made all kinds of arrangements. In just one day, a huge fleet of battleships sailed out of the Alliance's starfield. There were more than 10 billion of them, and they were stationed at the edge of the starfield. Although the Master of the Magic Hall was extremely powerful, and this time he didn't lead the Magic Hall army in the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun on a punitive expedition, he acted alone as if he was taking revenge. Against a powerful late-stage Desolate supremacy, this kind of conventional battleship-level battle force was basically useless. But the Alliance of the Alliance still did so. On one hand, it was because this battle force was at least a way to show that they weren't weak in the face of a battle. On the other hand, even if the conventional battleship-level battle force didn't pose much of a threat to beings at the level of remote antiquity supremacy, the 10 billion battleship army was waiting for them. The battleship cannons were all fully charged in advance. If necessary, they could instantly fire 10,000 cannons at once. This kind of scene would probably cover the vast void space with endless beams of energy from the battleship cannons. More or less, it would definitely cause some damage and influence to the Master of the Magic Hall. But apart from that, the 4 middle-stage Desolate supremacies of the Alliance of the Alliance of the Alliance of the Alliance, as well as the 24 powerful beings of the Primordial Era, and close to 100 Universe Masters and Universe Supremes, had already flown out from the depths of the starfield. They stood in the void space with their physical bodies, guarding the 10 billion battleship army at the edge of the starfield. Just like that, 3 whole days passed. In the past 3 days, no matter whether it was the army of the Alliance of 10,000 races that was ready for battle or the scouts that were lurking in the void in the distance, none of them made any moves. However, their hearts were in their throats as they waited for the arrival of the Master of the Magic Hall. Whoosh! Right at this moment, a ray of light shot over and closed in on them in the blink of an eye. It was the Master of the Magic Hall, a ferocious ape with a monstrous aura. Roar! Walala! As soon as he descended, the figure of the Master of the Magic Hall came to an abrupt halt in the void. Immediately after, the strange sound of splashing water rang out. His entire figure instantly collapsed, turning into a sea of blood that spread out and enveloped a corner of the universe's void. Roar! Roar! Hiss! Very quickly, from 3 different directions of this vast sea of blood, shocking roars and ferocious howls could be heard. Within the shocking waves of the boundless sea of blood, in the blink of an eye, 3 gigantic figures rose from the ground in an instant. They were the 3 great demon bodies of the ancient ape demons. The body of flesh and blood, which was the violent ape of stars. The body of bones without any flesh and blood, was merely a purple-gold skeleton that exuded an endless ferocious aura, incomparably ferocious. Black the body of fog was a cloak of black fog, and even its pair of eyes were merely 2 cloaks of purple light. It was extremely strange. In a short time, the 3 great blood sea bodies had already formed, and the aura that emanated from their bodies was shockingly at the 7th order of the Primordial Era. But, in fact, the true battle power of these 3 blood sea bodies due to the support of the majestic blood and energy within the 60 million miles huge body, had reached the level of an eighth-order desolate supremacy. Roar! Just as his figure rose from the sea of blood, the ferocious ape raised its head and roared again. It raised its hand and pointed at the four primordial era supremacies 10 billion miles away. Its voice was cold and filled with endless disdain. You! Who wants to fight? Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4823. The Alliance of 10,000 Races. Star outside the star domain, a huge fleet of battleships was waiting. There were more than 10 billion of them, and they were spread out in the void space at the edge of the star domain. There was no end in sight. Besides that, the four middle-stage desolate masters of the Alliance of 10,000 Races, 24 powerful beings of the primordial era, and close to 100 universe masters and universe supremes had already flown out from the depths of the star domain. They stood in the void space with their physical bodies, guarding in front of the fleet of 10 billion battleships at the edge of the star domain. Around the void space, there was a large number of scout fleets from various races and powers lying in wait, paying close attention to what was happening here. Here at this moment, as the master of the magic hall arrived, he immediately waved his hand and produced a blood sea, and 3 blood sea bodies appeared at the same time. Regardless of whether it was the great army of the Alliance of 10,000 Races that was ready for battle, or the scout fleets from various powers and races lying in wait in the void space, everyone was extremely nervous. Howl. As the 3 blood sea bodies flew up, Bao Yuan raised his head and roared. He raised his hand and pointed at the 4 primordial masters who were 10 billion miles away. His voice was cold and filled with endless disdain. Who will fight with me? At this moment, he was standing on the vast blood sea, which was 60 million miles wide. Although the aura emitted from his body was only at the 7th level of the primordial master, his actual combat power was comparable to that of an 8th-level desolate master. Including the skeleton body and the black fog body, which were standing in the other 2 directions of the vast blood sea, standing in a tripartite confrontation with Bao Yuan, it was the same. On the other side, at the forefront of the 10 billion battleship army of the Myriad Races Alliance, the most powerful existences among the 100 or so upper echelons of the Alliance were only the 4 middle-stage desolate venerables from the Hell Ant, the Space Rat, the Giant Ferocious, and the Evil Spirit Slime. The most powerful one, the strongest one was at the 6th level of the Primordial Master, and the weakest one was only at the 4th level of the Primordial Master. Here, the 3 Blood Sea avatars of the Magic Hall's Master were comparable to a level 8 desolate supremacy. He could easily beat them up in a 1 versus 2 battle. In this way, the 4 mid-stage desolate venerables of the Alliance of 10,000 Tribes and the Master of the Magic Hall would only need to send out 2 Blood Sea avatars to hold them back, while the remaining Blood Sea avatar would rush into the rest of the higher-ups of the Alliance. Like a tiger entering a pack of wolves, it would kill the 24 powerful beings of the desolate antiquity, one by one. First he'd done the exact same thing back in the Star Alliance. Word of this had spread far and wide. Not only were the countless experts of the Alliance aware of this, but even the scouts from various factions and clans lurking in the void were well aware of this. Demon, the Hall Master's target was not the 4 mid-stage desolate venerables of the Alliance of 10,000 Tribes, but the 24 powerful beings of the desolate antiquity who were slightly weaker. This had long been a consensus. Even though the outside world did not know why the Devil Hall Master had intentionally killed so many of the primordial era's almighty figures, at this moment, as he really did arrive with a rumbling sound, everyone understood. This time, the 24 almighty figures of the primordial era from the Myriad Races Alliance were probably in danger. Roar! Just as Bao Yuan finished speaking, in front of the army of the Alliance of 10,000 Tribes, the desolate venerable ancestor of the Hell Ant tribe, a black and gold giant ant that was millions of miles long, raised its head and let out a shocking roar. Roar! At the same time, the sound of his divine sense reverberated throughout the star domain. Countless experts in the starry sky could hear it clearly. Bao Yuan, this trick of yours is no longer effective. You want to use 2 Blood Sea avatars to lure the 4 of us away, and then leave the Blood Sea avatar behind to kill the powerful beings of the Alliance? You've already used the same trick in the Star Alliance. I won't fall for it. Roar! Just as he finished speaking, the desolate venerable ancestor of the Space Rat tribe, a giant silver rat that was millions of miles long, immediately took over the conversation. Anger with a roar, he continued. Bao Yuan, if you have the ability, just come and kill us. The 4 of us will not be separated. Although we are only at the mid-stage desolate venerable level, you can forget about separating us. If we fight, even if we have to pay a huge price, the four of us will join forces to kill one of your avatars. This was indeed the safest way to deal with it. Although the four of them were only at the mid-stage Desolate Antiquity level, as the supreme masters of the Desolate Antiquity, which one of them did not have powerful secret techniques? If Bao Yuan and the other two Blood Sea avatars rushed out at the same time, their only choice was to join forces and use their secret techniques to attack one of the Blood Sea avatars at the same time. Even if the Blood Sea avatar did not die, it would be severely injured. This strategy was the strategy that the four desolate venerable ancestors of the Alliance of the 10,000 Races had secretly discussed and finally decided on. Although it was too passive, their original goal was to force Yi Xian to retreat and leave. When they first arrived in the void fragment of the Chaos World, the four of them were still complacent and disdainful of the magic hall that ruled this world. They thought that the four mid-stage desolate venerables on their side were enough to match the infamous master of the magic hall. However, the previous battle in the Star Alliance had finally made them realize the situation and the power of the master of the magic hall. Thus, the four of them had already given up on the idea that they could destroy the magic hall with just the Alliance of the 10,000 Races. At their point of view, the most reliable plan was to force the master of the magic hall to retreat today. After that, they would join forces with the three primordial venerables of the Star Alliance. After a secret discussion, the 7 powerful desolate venerables would attack together. Only then would they have a chance of killing the master of the magic hall. And the possibility of this was not small. As long as the master of the Sky River, Yi Xian, who was said to be on par with the master of the magic hall, did not appear, then the master of the magic hall would definitely fall under the 7 of them. For this matter, even if they were forced to the doorstep today, they would still not dare to take the initiative to fight. They would lose some face and grit their teeth and bear with it. Today, I am already here, whether you fight or not is not up to you. Facing the roars of the black gold giant ant and the silver giant rat, Bao Yuan curled his lips and did not care at all. Just as he finished speaking, he had already rushed forward. Xiao xiao. At the same time, the skeleton doppelganger and the black mist doppelganger also rushed out. The 3 Blood Sea doppelganger rushed out at the same time, the aura in their bodies spreading to the extreme. A deep rumbling sound of thunder could be heard in the void. Roar! Hiss hiss hiss. Seeing this scene, the black gold giant ant, the silver giant rat, and the 4 desolate venerables from the giant ferocious race and the evil slime race roared at the same time. The aura in their bodies also surged to the extreme. Then again, without hesitation, with a shake of their shoulders, they rushed forward to meet the Blood Sea doppelganger, Bao Yuan. However, the 4 of them did not separate. Pang Da's huge body was only a few million li away from each other. This was clearly the rhythm of them joining forces to kill one of Yi Xian's Blood Sea doppelganger. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4824. Seeing this scene in the distant void, countless powerhouses in the scout fleets from the various clans and forces trembled violently. Their expressions changed drastically, and they all exclaimed in horror. What? Under such circumstances, the master of the magic hall still made a move? He's truly incomparably ruthless and savage. Even if the situation is disadvantageous to him, he doesn't care at all. He fights when he needs to fight. He kills when he needs to kill. He acts recklessly without any fear or apprehension. This is the temperament and nature of the violent ape of stars. This race is definitely not an existence to be trifled with. They are all a bunch of lunatics. However, such impulsiveness obviously comes with a price. The 4 desolate supremacies of the Alliance of 10,000 Races have also gone all out. They have already said that if the master of the magic hall really wants to start a war, the 4 of them will use all their secret techniques and methods to combine their strength and kill one of the 3 Blood Sea avatars of the master of the magic hall at the same time. From the looks of it, the target that the 4 of them have chosen is obviously the violent ape of the 3 Blood Sea avatars. Although the 4 of them are only middle-stage desolate supremacies, 2 of them are level 6 desolate supremacies. They are only one step away from the late-stage desolate supremacies. Under the combined attack of their secret techniques, even if the violent ape does not die, he will at least be heavily injured. The 3 Blood Sea avatars are extremely important to the master of the magic hall. They are an important part of his domineering deterrence. If any of them is heavily injured, it will have a huge impact. The master of the magic hall is really too unwise. After this battle, the magic hall will fall into an awkward situation. At least for a short period of time. Its deterrence will be greatly reduced. Roar. I have said before. Today, I am already here. Whether you fight or not is not up to you. Furthermore, since I am the one who initiated this battle, then the direction of this battle can only be decided by me. Xiao. While the surroundings were filled with shock and astonishment, the violent ape of the 3 blood sea avatars that were charging towards the edge of the alliance of 10,000 races suddenly raised his head and roared angrily. The sound of his divine sense enveloped the vast void in a radius of tens of billions of miles. Countless experts could clearly hear it. Before the sound of his divine sense had finished, the violent ape had already waved his hand. Xiao! Phew! Rumble! Almost at the same time, an incomparably sharp sound of breaking through the air rang out, and a faint firefly-like 9-colored light shot out. It expanded against the wind, and in a breath, it had already turned into a vast and boundless 9-colored flame sea. Void in the air, whistling sounds were incessant, accompanied by an incomparably deep rumbling sound. The 9-colored sea of flames that suddenly appeared was like mercury spilling over the ground, instantly spreading out in all directions and spreading out in all directions, dyeing a large expanse of the universe void. All of this happened too quickly. The 4 desolate Zune-old monsters from the Myriad Races Alliance who rushed out from the void in front of them were completely unable to react in time. When they came back to their senses, the 4 old fellows, together with the vast void of 200 million miles around them, had been completely enveloped by the spherical 9-colored sea of flames. The interior of the huge sphere was their cage, and there was no way to escape, because no matter which direction they broke through, they would touch the 9-colored sea of flames. That was definitely the rhythm of death. Looking around, all they could see were 9-colored flames rising endlessly from all directions. The sky, the earth, and the void were all connected together. They were completely trapped by this sea of flames. These thoughts flashed through the sea, and the 4 old fellows' huge bodies came to an abrupt halt. Their bodies shook violently, and their expressions suddenly changed. They exclaimed in horror, revealing endless despair. What? 9-colored flame sea? It really is the Shenong 9-colored flame. We've been tricked by the violent ape. Damn it, we shouldn't have gathered together. Now that we've been captured by him, even if he can't do anything to us, he can only trap us, but he can't kill us, but the alliance outside is going to suffer a great disaster. Roar! His target is the 24 alliance experts. Now that we're trapped in the 9-colored sea of flames and can't escape, I'm afraid they'll end up like the Star Alliance. They'll all be killed in a short time. Too shameless. This is simply unbearable. Big Ant, your black shell is hard. It should be able to resist the flames. Why don't you try and see if you can break out of this sea of flames? Sika, your sister, you damned rat, you're too insidious. This is the Shenong 9-colored flame. Even a late-stage almighty would lose a layer of skin if they touched it. My black shell is hard, but it can't withstand the heat. What exactly are you scheming? The 9-colored flame sea instantly shrouded him, completely sealing off a vast void of 200 million miles. Caught off guard, the 4 desolate venerable ancestors of the Myriad Race Alliance who were trapped inside exclaimed in shock. Their voices with a voice spread out through the 9-colored sea of flames, and after a brief moment of silence, countless experts in the scout fleets of the various races and forces shuddered violently. Cries of shock and astonishment immediately rang out like a tide. What happened? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? Or perhaps, this is a dream? In just a short moment, the situation has undergone such a shocking reversal. The Demon Hallmaster is too sinister. Previously, he was arrogant and arrogant. Then, he suddenly made a move. In an instant, he sealed the 4 desolate venerables of the Alliance of 10,000 races. Just as he said today, since he is here, it is not up to others to decide whether to fight or not. Furthermore, since he was the one who initiated the battle, then the direction of this battle can only be determined by his wishes. Isn't this the case for everything in front of us? Previously, I thought he was planning to use the 2 Blood Sea avatars to lure away the 4 desolate supremacy patriarchs of the Alliance of 10,000 races. Then he would leave the 3rd Blood Sea avatar behind and slaughter the 24 primordial grand beings of the Alliance of 10,000 races like a tiger in a flock of sheep. But now, it seems that the Magic Hallmaster's methods are even more shocking. Just a physical avatar, the violent ape, was able to trap all 4 desolate supremes from the Alliance of 10,000 races. The 9-colored flame sea has trapped the 4 desolate venerables in one net. It's enough to have Bao Yuan to control it here. As for the remaining 2 Blood Sea avatars, there are countless experts in the Alliance of 10,000 races, but who can stop them? This is a ferocious ape with an exceedingly violent disposition. Moreover, it's treacherous and calculative. It's simply too terrifying, and it absolutely can't be offended. Otherwise, it'll definitely bring misfortune. Roar! Screech! Cries of surprise came from all around like a tide. In the battlefield in front of them, in the vast sea of blood, two earth-shattering roars and a vicious howl suddenly rang out. At this moment, the skeleton doppelganger and the black fog doppelganger of the three Blood Sea doppelgangers moved at the same time. They rushed toward the 10 billion battleships army at the edge of the alliance of 10,000 races. Juan, to be exact, it should be the 100 or so alliance higher-ups at the forefront of this battleship army. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4825. Roar! Screech! Along with the earth-shattering roars and screeches, the skeleton avatar and the black fog avatar of the three Blood Sea avatars moved at the same time, charging towards the 10 billion battleship army at the edge of the alliance of 10,000 races. At this moment, the 100 or so alliance higher-ups at the forefront of the battleship army trembled as if they had agreed to it beforehand. Their expressions changed drastically, as if they had suddenly seen a ghost. This was especially so for the 24 supreme beings at the very front. They were so scared that their legs started to tremble. No one knew the purpose of the skeleton avatar and the black fog avatar better than them, because when the roars and screeches sounded, they suddenly felt as if their auras were firmly locked onto. This time, the real reason why the Master of the Magic Hall attacked the alliance of 10,000 races again was because of them. First, when the four mid-stage Baron Supremes of the alliance, including the black gold giant ant and the silver giant rat, were still blocking in front, they, who were the targets of the Master of the Magic Hall, were already trembling in fear. Now, in the blink of an eye, the four powerful Baron Supremes of the alliance were all, without exception, trapped by the giant sphere formed by the nine-colored flame sea. In the entire alliance of 10,000 races, there was no one who was stronger than them. This, the feeling of having no one to rely on, was already enough to make them panic. Now that they were facing the skeleton clone and the black fog clone that were shooting toward them, the auras in their bodies were extremely tyrannical, and the auras in their bodies were firmly locked onto them at the first moment. It could be said that at this moment, the hearts of the 24 powerful figures of the alliance were almost completely broken down. Roar! Screech! All battleships, fire together, launch, bombardment. In the face of the rapidly approaching crisis, the 24 powerful figures of the alliance had a drastic change in expression. They roared anxiously, and the auras in their bodies became even more intense. One of them, in a fit of anger, immediately ordered the 10 billion battleship army behind him to fire together. Whang! Boom! Rumble! A low buzzing sound immediately sounded. Following his order, the 10 billion battleships behind him fired at the same time. Tens of billions of space cannons of different diameters were fired together, and the entire void was slightly trembling. Swoosh! Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After the loud explosion, the sound of the air being torn apart could be heard. Countless energy beams from the cannons of the warships rained down, covering the sky and covering the earth, enveloping the void. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the higher-ups of the scouting fleets from the various races and forces changed drastically. They immediately gave the order to retreat. Although the distance between them was very far, and even the cannons of the fortress couldn't reach such a distance, they were still within the safe range. However, the sight of 10 billion battleships firing at the same time is simply too shocking. It's always better to retreat a little further, and I'll feel more at ease. Walala! Almost at the same time, the gigantic bodies of Positive Pole's skeleton doppelganger and Black Mist doppelganger instantly turned into a rain of blood. Immediately after, the vast sea of blood rapidly shrank, and in less than half a breath, it had already turned into a weak firefly, as if it did not exist. Compared to the energy light curtain formed by the countless beams of light that covered a large part of the vast void, it was completely negligible. Very soon, a short while later, the vast sea of blood rapidly shrank, and in less than half a breath, had turned into a weak firefly, as if it did not exist. In just a few moments, the countless energy beams from the cannons of this round of bombardment had already whizzed past, charging into the void even further away. Along the way, some stars were struck, and earth-shattering rumbles resounded, shocking everyone who heard them. This is what you asked for, so don't blame me. Almost in the next moment, under a bloody flash, the skeleton doppelganger and the Black Mist doppelganger suddenly reappeared. Their bodies expanded rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, they had already reached a size of 60 million miles. The pressure of a late-stage desolate venerable from their bodies made people tremble. Boom! Boom! Rumble! Just as he finished speaking, the skeleton doppelganger and the black mist doppelganger punched out at the same time. Even though they were tens of billions of miles away, within the 10 billion battleship army in front of the Alliance star sector, two gigantic mushroom clouds instantly exploded. At this moment, flames soared into the sky, and the rumbling sounds of explosions were even more shocking than the movement of 10 billion battleships. Although it was the simplest two punches, and they were tens of billions of miles away, the ones who made the move were, after all, two powerful late-stage desolate venerables. The destruction caused by the two punches was too severe. Within the 10 billion huge battleship army, flames soared into the sky in the blink of an eye, and at least 1 billion battleships were destroyed because of this. Until the great beings of the Alliance and the battleships were too numerous to count. Just one attack had caused such severe consequences, and close to 100 upper echelons of the Alliance in front of the void space were terrified. This time, without waiting for the 24 great beings of the Alliance to make a sound, the dozens of Universe Masters and Universe Supremes behind them had already overstepped their authority and issued orders one after another. Damn it! Who asked you to activate the cannons and launch a salvo? That's simply courting death. Turn off the cannons. Immediately turn off all the cannons. This is an order. All battleships, turn around immediately and retreat to the inner part of the Alliance star sector. Everyone evacuate. Howl! 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 As the orders were issued, the dozens of Universe Masters and Universe Supremes rushed out and used all their strength to retreat to the inner part of the Alliance star sector behind them. Such words and actions were extremely disrespectful to the 24 great beings of the Alliance in front of them. However, at this moment, they couldn't care less. Moreover, judging from the situation before them, it was obvious that these 24 great beings of the Alliance would be annihilated one after another very soon. To put it bluntly, at this moment, in the eyes of the dozens of Universe Masters and Universe Supremes behind them, they were actually no different from dead people. In fact, the 24 great beings of the Alliance in the void space in front of them were obviously aware of this, but at this moment, they couldn't care less about flying into a rage out of humiliation. They turned around and reprimanded the dozens of Universe Masters and Universe Supremes, who were retreating to the inner part of the Alliance star sector behind them. This was because after each of them threw out a punch, in the void space 10 billion miles ahead of them in front of them, the skeleton body and the black fog body of the Magic Hall Master had already charged straight toward them with a flash of coldness in their eyes. All of them were filled with murderous intent, and the overflowing murderous intent made even the void space tremble slightly. Until, previously, they had already locked onto the surrounding great beings of the Alliance star sector with their divine senses, and they didn't relax at all. This was clearly a prelude to an all-out massacre. At this moment, if they didn't run, they might not have the chance to leave later on. Howl! 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 As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the 24 great beings of the Alliance star sector didn't hesitate at all. They raised their heads and roared angrily, then turned around and madly fled in all directions. At this moment, the high-level combat power of the Alliance star sector was like a monkey scattering before the tree even fell. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of this website. Chapter 4826. Roar! Screech! Screech, screech, screech! Roars and howls shook the heavens, revealing endless panic and fear. At this moment, the high-level combat strength of the Myriad Races Alliance could be said to be like monkeys scattering before the trees fell. On the other side, the 24 Alliance mighty figures in front of the 10 billion warships did not hesitate at all. After raising their heads and roaring, they all turned around and fled in all directions. Don't you think you're a little slow to think of running at such a time? I might as well be frank. The reason I came to the Alliance today is for you 24 primordial mighty figures. So, don't even think about leaving. Whoosh! Boom! Seeing this, the skeleton doppelganger and the black fog doppelganger both sent out their divine senses at the same time, followed by an angry roar. Almost in the next moment, there was a faint sound of something breaking through the air, and a black shadow suddenly appeared behind one of the primordial era mighty figures. This black shadow was the Black Mist clone. At this time, his form was not as huge as before because that was too big and not convenient for assassination. However, to him, these 24 primordial mighty figures were just a bunch of ants. Gosh! He was afraid that the Black Fog avatar would give up the one-stage augmentation to his cultivation by the boundless blood and chi in his massive body. He was still a rank 7 desolate supremacy. Crushing this group of primordial era mighty figures was like crushing a group of ants. Such as, although the black mist clone was only about 10 feet tall, the aura that spread out from his body was extremely terrifying. Just the moment his figure appeared, the primordial mighty figure that he had locked on as his first target felt his scalp explode. He opened his mouth to beg for mercy, but he obviously would never have the chance. The black mist clone immediately stretched out his right fist, and there was not the slightest bit of energy aura spreading out. A simple punch landed squarely on the primordial era expert's back. After a deafening explosion, the primordial great expert's enormous body was blown apart. Then, along with the earth-shattering explosion, the ferocious beast mighty figure did not even have the chance to react before his body turned into a bloody mist that spread out. Xiao! In the next instant, the black fog clone waved his hand and an incomparably majestic invisible force swept out from his body, enveloping an area of tens of thousands of miles. The majestic blood fog that had just spread out was all swept up and absorbed into his body. Edison after the battle, they would be sent to the bottom of the central region volcano in the space within the cauldron. Then, the blood essence condensation would begin. And all of this only took half a breath, and the black mist avatar disappeared. In the blink of an eye, it reappeared in front of another primordial era mighty figure hundreds of millions of kilometers away. At the same time, in another direction, Supreme Being of the Alliance who was running away subconsciously looked back. At this moment, a purple gold figure appeared in front of him. It was silent, without the slightest movement or energy. It was the skeleton avatar. Here the avatar's body had also shrunk to the size of about 10 feet, and the aura it exuded was that of a seventh-order desolate venerable. It was slightly weaker than before, but it was more than enough to crush this group of experts from the Myriad Races Alliance. Boom! Puh! By the time the primordial era expert realized that something was wrong, the skeleton avatar had already punched him in the chest. Half of his chest had been hit by the skeleton avatar. There was no suspense at all. With a huge explosion, the primordial era mighty figure's entire body turned into a rapidly spreading bloody mist in the blink of an eye. Xiao! As the target's body exploded into a bloody mist, the skeleton avatar immediately waved his hand, and an incomparably majestic invisible force swept out from his body, covering a radius of tens of thousands of miles. The majestic blood fog that had just spread out was swept up by him and absorbed into his body, waiting to be sent to the bottom of the central region volcano in the cauldron space after the battle. Thus, the blood essence condensation began. After the successful attack, the skeleton avatar's body disappeared again in the blink of an eye and rushed to the second target. Although it sounded like a long time in reality, it happened in less than a breath's time. It could be said that in the blink of an eye, the Myriad Races Alliance had lost two powerful primordial era mighty figures. This scene was too frightening, and the other primordial era mighty figures were all frightened. There were only 24 primordial era mighty figures in the entire Myriad Races Alliance, and now, 2 of them had been killed in less than a breath's time. It was like chopping vegetables. Such as, with such terrifying means and killing speed, at this rate, they would all be annihilated in less than half an incense's time. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the remaining 23 primordial era mighty figures looked at each other in horror. At this moment, they finally realized how terrifying the master of the magic hall was. Even if they had the battle strength of a desolate venerable, they were still no different from ants in front of a real late-stage desolate venerable. Xiao! When they started to communicate with each other through divine sense, the black mist avatar, who was only a few feet tall, appeared hundreds of millions of miles away in another direction in the blink of an eye. Screech! This time, the primordial era mighty figure whose aura was locked on by the black mist avatar immediately felt the arrival of danger. Before the black mist avatar could make a move, his body suddenly trembled and in fear, he raised his head and let out an incomparably shrill scream. Bang! Pooh! Unfortunately, all of this could not change anything. The black mist avatar had already made its move. It threw a simple punch at the primordial great being's enormous body. After a huge explosion, the primordial great being's enormous body was reduced to a cloud of blood mist in the blink of an eye. You're reading on Novelful, thanks for the support. You're reading on Novelful, thanks for the support. Xiao. Even though this primordial era mighty figure was already prepared, he still could not withstand the black mist avatar's attack, and his entire body exploded into a bloody mist. The black mist avatar immediately waved his hand. An incomparably majestic and invisible force rolled out from his body, and the majestic blood mist that had just spread out was all swept up by him and absorbed into his body, Before all of this was completed, in another direction, the golden-purple skeleton avatar had already appeared once again. With a flash of coldness in his eyes, he rushed towards an Alliance mighty figure that was tens of millions of miles away to the right. Boom! Bang! An earth-shattering explosion rang out, and the fourth Alliance mighty figure fell. The slaughter was too tragic. It was simple and direct. Although it was not flashy, it gave people an extremely shocking feeling that was difficult to describe with words. At this moment, the remaining 24 Alliance mighty figures were already scared out of their wits. They didn't even care about being afraid anymore. The only thought in their minds was to do their best and escape as far as possible. At this moment, space had fallen into a strange deathly silence. Besides the sharp sounds of numerous figures tearing through the air as they fled in panic, there was actually no other sound. It was like hell had descended, and it was deathly silent to the point it caused one's heart to feel cold while one's soul almost left their bodies. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. M. Chapter 4827. Boom! Bang! There was an earth-shattering explosion. As the black fog avatar punched out, the fifth Almighty from the Alliance died. The huge inner peak turned into a cloud of blood mist that spread out. Then, the black fog avatar waved its hand and put it away. At first, Yi Xian only had 9 blood essences of mighty figures. After a trip to the Star Alliance and killing 16 primordial mighty figures, the number of blood essences in his hands had increased to 25. While, now, as he arrived at the Alliance again, the hunt had just begun, and he had already obtained 5 blood essences of mighty figures. The total number of blood essences of mighty figures in his hands had reached 30. But this was still far from enough. According to his estimation, he had to prepare at least 40 level 29 Desolate Supreme pills to meet his needs in the future. So, therefore, the primordial mighty figures still had to be killed. But this time, after leaving the Star Alliance, he did not immediately return to the Magic Hall in the Forbidden Land of Rising Sunday. His only purpose was to strike while the iron was hot and arrive at the Star Sector where the Alliance was located. The 24 primordial mighty figures of the Alliance that had just arrived not long ago were all killed. Of the 24 Alliance mighty figures, 5 had been killed, and there were 19 left. Beside, others may not know the significance of these 19 primordial mighty figures, but Yi Xian was well aware. To him, these were 19 level 29 Desolate Supreme pills. Each of them represented the birth of a powerful primordial mighty figure under Yi Xian's Magic Hall in the future. Therefore, the remaining 19 primordial mighty figures of the Alliance must all be killed. Not one less. Boom! Bang! With that determination, the skeleton clone's eyes flashed coldly, and he attacked again. With a simple punch, the sixth Almighty Alliance cultivator exploded into a cloud of blood, which was then collected by the clone with a wave of his hand. Everything seemed to take a long time, but in fact, it happened in the span of 10 breaths. In just 10 breaths, at the edge of the Star Sector of the Alliance, a large number of Alliance battleships were still rapidly retreating into the sector. 10 billion miles to the right, within the gigantic fireball formed by the 9-colored flame sea, the black gold giant ant, the silver giant rat and the other desolate supremacies of the Alliance were still roaring like thunder. However, in this battlefield, the 6 powerful desolate supremes of the Alliance had already fallen. Their bodies and souls were destroyed, and not a single hair was left behind. When this scene fell into the eyes of the experts of the scout fleets from the various clans and forces, they had long fallen completely silent. Sukasome people's mouths were wide open, their eyes were wide open, and even their breathing had stopped. The expression on their faces was as if they had seen a ghost, and they were incomparably sluggish. Again, it was only after a few breaths that the Black Mist clone and the Skeleton clone each launched a simple punch that each destroyed a mighty figure of the primordial era from the Myriad Races Alliance. Their bodies shook violently, and their expressions changed abruptly. They all gasped and exclaimed in horror. What? 6 of the primordial era's almighties have fallen in just a few breaths? No, it's clearly 8 of them. While you were talking, the master of the Magic Hall Skeleton clone and the Black Mist clone each killed one of the Desolate Supremes. It's too cruel, too bloody. The master of the Magic Hall's monstrous ferociousness is simply terrifying. There is no doubt about the result of this battle. After the Star Alliance, the Myriad Races Alliance will also suffer heavy losses. Perhaps the 4 Desolate Supremes trapped in the 9-colored flame sea will be able to escape this calamity. After all, the Desolate Supremes are too difficult to kill. Every one of them must pay a heavy price. However, there is no doubt that these 24 desolate supremes will be completely annihilated in this battle. After this battle, the strength of the Myriad Races Alliance will be greatly reduced. More importantly, the Master of the Magic Hall will be traumatized by this battle. I'm afraid that in the near future, they won't be able to join forces with the Star Alliance and attack the Magic Hall together. I originally thought that with the arrival of the reinforcements from the three great alliances and the continuous announcement of their withdrawal from the Demon Hall, which was already ruling the world in this primordial world fragment, would no longer be powerful. I didn't expect that it would end up like this. The Star Alliance and the Myriad Races Alliance have suffered heavy losses one after another. The Beast Alliance has already been eliminated, and the Survivors Alliance doesn't even dare to fart. They have been holed up in the star field and haven't shown themselves. The remaining most powerful alliance, the Human Federation, and the unexpected arrival of the Tianji clan, are in a fierce battle. I'm afraid that they won't stop for a while. So it seems that the supreme overlord of this primordial era fragment is still the Magic Hall. Screech. Boom. Rumble. Whoosh whoosh. Along with the horrified cries coming from the distance, the incomparably mournful roars from the battlefield didn't stop for a moment. There was also the sound of rumbling thunder, which was soul-stirring. The remaining primordial powerful beings of the Human Alliance fled in different directions with all their might. But, unfortunately, although the speed of the powerful figures of the primordial era was amazing, it was nothing compared to the supreme masters of the primordial era, especially the late Desolate Supremacy. Remains the Bone Doppelganger and the Black Fog Doppelganger were like dragons roaming the four seas. Their figures flashed from time to time in different areas of the void. Every time they appeared, they didn't hesitate at all and immediately punched. There was no resistance at all. The remaining powerful figures of the Human Alliance had long been scared out of their wits. In the face of the violent energy head-on, there was no other way to deal with it except to escape like crazy. The final result was without suspense. Remains the Bone Clone and the Black Mist Clone struck out time and time again. Each time, it was a simple punch. Every time they struck their target, their bodies would explode in a single moment, turning into a tremendous mist of blood that dispersed into the surroundings. Before it could spread, the Bone Doppelganger and the Black Fog Doppelganger waved their hands and swept it into their bodies. After the battle, they would send it into the Farmer God's Cauldron to begin the refinement of blood essence. It was an unprecedented bloodbath. Not even the recent Star Alliance had such a one-sided battle. Star was a force to be reckoned with. In the Battle of the Sky Alliance, Yi Xian had only killed 16 of the primordial era's great figures. But this time, in the Alliance of 10,000 Races, he didn't plan to let any of the 24 primordial era's great figures escape. Although, the number of prey had increased, but at the same time the Black Fog Doppelganger and the Bone Doppelganger had increased from the last battle to the two primordial era's great figures. Exactly because of this, the duration of this battle was much shorter than the last battle in the Star Alliance. The 24 powerful primordial era experts were completely slaughtered by the Bone Doppelganger and the Black Fog Doppelganger in just a few dozen breaths. At this moment, the incomparably mournful howls and screams in the void completely disappeared. Not even the slightest smell of blood could be heard because the blood doppelganger had been collected. But, invisibly, there was a boundless chill that made one's divine soul tremble, rapidly spreading, making the scouts of the various forces in the distant void feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4828. Before the start of this battle, the experts in the scout fleets of various forces who were watching the battle from afar had roughly guessed the final fate of the 24 powerful figures from the Alliance of the Ancients. However, no one had expected that this battle would end so quickly in such a short period of time. 24 powerful figures from the Ancients, including the Skeleton Avatar and the Black Fog Avatar of the Master of the Magic Hall, were completely wiped out in just a few dozen breaths. A few dozen breaths was just the time it took to brew a cup of tea. If someone had poured a cup of hot tea before the battle, by the time the battle was over, and the 24 powerful figures from the Ancients had all fallen, the cup of hot tea would still be warm. This was a huge irony, but it made people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. Of course, this was only the feeling of the spectators. For Yi Xian, this was not the case. On the contrary, at this moment, his heart was full of joy, and there was a great sense of satisfaction after a harvest. Before the start of this battle, he only had 25 supreme expert blood essences in his possession. But now that he'd obtained 24 of them, The total number of Supreme Expert blood essences in Yi Xian's possession had reached a total of 49. Among these 49 blood essences, there were even 6 of the best quality. As such, according to Yi Xian's calculations, if he were to use these 49 Supreme Expert blood essences to refine them, then the chances of producing 51 level 29 Desolate Sovereign pellets would be 100%. It was a done deal. Even 53 pills would have a 60% chance. As for the probability of 55 pills, it had dropped sharply, to only about 40%. His original plan was to refine 40 level 29 Desolate Supremacy pills. Now, he had at least 51 pills as a guarantee. It could be said that he had greatly exceeded his original plan, and it was definitely a huge surprise. This time, his gains were truly too great, causing his heart to be incomparably agitated. Even with Yi Xian's current state of mind, he couldn't calm down for a long time. After a full 10 breaths of time, his surging heart gradually calmed down. Then, the skeleton avatar and the black fog avatar turned their heads and exchanged a look. With tacit understanding, they immediately turned their heads to look at the giant 9-colored flame ball 10 billion miles away on the right side. In today's battle, the main goal had been exceeded. If they could kill one more Supreme Primordial Master, it would be absolutely perfect. It would be icing on the cake. Although there were 4 primordial sovereigns trapped in the 9-colored flame sea, all of them were only at the middle stage of the primordial sovereign realm. The weakest among them was only at the beginning stage of the primordial sovereign realm, which was only a rank 4 desolate sovereign. Currently, Yi Xian's 3 blood sea clones were all here. If they entered the 9-colored flame ball at the same time and joined forces, they might be able to kill the 4th-order desolate sovereign in one fell swoop. Although it was difficult to kill a desolate supremacy, especially a mid-stage desolate supremacy, the 3 blood sea avatars were already at the late stage of this realm. Their combat strength was extremely powerful. With the help of the 9-colored flame sea, theoretically speaking, as long as there was enough time, the 4 supreme masters of the ancients from the Myriad Races Alliance who were trapped in the fireball would be annihilated one by one. However, theory was theory, and reality was reality. Yi Xian could not spend so much time here because there were other supreme primordial masters in the void of this primordial world fragment who could arrive at any time. Once they were disturbed, there would be endless variables in an instant. What's more, now that he was conquering the Alliance alone, there were no desolate supremacies in the magic hall of the forbidden land of the rising sun. The strongest existences were the 2 old guys, the primordial porcupine and the primordial hairy tortoise. In the early stage. Other than that, there were the 9 supreme primordial beasts of the Star Alliance who had just submitted to the magic hall. And the battle that happened in the Alliance would soon be known by the other desolate supremacies in the void of this primordial world fragment. The Human Federation and the Tianji clan were not that big of a deal. Even if they wanted to, they would not have the time to leave in such a short time. But the Star Alliance was a big threat. Not long ago, Yi Xian had just arrived in the Star Alliance and killed 16 of the 25 supreme primordial masters in one fell swoop, subduing 9 of them. This was a monstrous hatred. If there was a chance, he would not let go of the blood-devouring lion, the 9-headed blood serpent, the azure sky rock, and the newly joined scarlet unicorn and the 9-hell demon crocodile. Yi Xian could not afford not to let his guard down. If they took advantage of the time when he was conquering the Alliance and rushed into the forbidden land of the rising sun, the headquarters of the magic hall, and started a massacre, the consequences would be unimaginable. Time is running out. Thinking of this, a cold light flashed in the eyes of the skeleton avatar and the black mist avatar as they murmured at the same time. But if we leave like this, it would be too much. No matter what, let's give it a try. If we can't kill that 4th-order supreme primordial master within the time it takes to burn a stick of incense, there's no need to continue the battle. Put away the 9-colored flame sea, withdraw, and retreat. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, the skeleton avatar and the black mist avatar had already rushed out at the same time. In the blink of an eye, they had already arrived at the edge of the giant 9-colored flame ball 10 billion miles to the right. Without the slightest hesitation, after exchanging a look with the violent ape, the 3 blood sea avatars' eyes flashed with a cold light, and in an instant, they rushed into the giant flame ball formed by the 9-colored flame sea. They disappeared. Seeing this scene, the countless experts in the scout fleets from the various races and forces in the distant void were stunned at the same time. Then, their expressions changed drastically, and their bodies shook violently. They were all shocked and cried out involuntarily. What's going on? The 24 primordial masters of the Alliance of the 10,000 races have all been wiped out. Shouldn't this battle be over? Why hasn't the master of the magic hall left? Hiss! The 3 blood sea avatars rushed into the giant flame ball formed by the 9-colored flame sea with a diameter of hundreds of millions of miles at the same time. What are they doing? Do you still need to ask? Is there anyone else trapped in that giant flame ball? It's the 4 primordial masters of the Alliance of the 10,000 Races. How is that possible? The master of the magic hall actually wants to expand the battle results and kill the 4 desolate masters of the Alliance of the 10,000 Races? This is too shocking. It's absolutely impossible to kill all of them. The master of the magic hall himself knows this, but if he finds an opportunity, the 3 blood sea avatars can join forces and attack at the same time. It's completely possible to only kill one of them. Something big is going to happen. Could it be that a desolate master is going to die here today? This is too shocking. The entire void is going to shake. Roar! Screech! Screech! Rumble! Just as countless cries of shock rang out in the surrounding void, a series of earth-shattering roars suddenly rang out from the giant fireball in the distance. There was even a rumbling sound of thunder that resounded endlessly. Obviously, the great battle in the flame ball had broken out. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 4829. Roar! Screech! Screech, screech, screech! Rumble! Within the giant fireball, a series of earth-shattering screeches and screeches could be heard. This meant that the battle between the 7 primordial supremes had begun. To be more precise, it wasn't the 7 primordial supremes that were fighting in the fireball, but 5. 4 of them belonged to the Alliance of 10,000 Tribes, while the other 3 were the Master of the Magic Hall. Only the Master of the Magic Hall would be able to fight against 4 primordial supremes alone. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the scouts from various forces and tribes in the distant void were dazzled. At this moment, the heroic figure of the Master of the Magic Hall was unprecedentedly high in their minds. Grand and glorious. Everyone was paying close attention to the outcome of this battle. Although they couldn't see the situation inside the giant fireball, the hearts of all the experts in the surrounding void were in their throats. Time passed slowly. Unknowingly, 30 minutes had passed. During this time, the earth-shattering screeches and screeches in the fireball didn't stop for a moment, and endless thunderous roars continued. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Just as all the experts were holding their breaths, 3 extremely sharp sounds suddenly came from the fireball in front of them. He looked up, only to see 3 gargantuan figures rush out of the giant 9-colored fireball almost at the same time. They were the 3 blood sea avatars of the Master of the Magic Hall, the Violent Ape Avatar, the Skeleton Avatar, and the Black Fog Avatar. Yi Xian's original time limit was 30 minutes. Now that the time was up, he couldn't delay any longer. Otherwise, the Rising Sun Forbidden Land would be lost. Although he couldn't find an opportunity to kill the rank 4 primordial supremes, this battle had to end. He couldn't stay any longer. Walala! As the 3 blood sea clones charged out, gushing sounds that were like tidewater instantly rang out, covering the entire place. The Black Mist Doppelganger and the Skeleton Doppelganger instantly collapsed, turning into a rain of blood that fused into the sea of blood beneath their feet. Then, the boundless sea of blood shrank in the blink of an eye, turning into a weak ray of light that shot into the space between Bao Yuan's eyebrows. He turned his head and swept his gaze over the experts who were watching from afar. The figure of the Bao Yuan shrunk rapidly, and in the blink of an eye, it returned to its original height of around 3 meters. Screech! Hua! In the next moment, the violent ape raised its head and let out a slightly unwilling roar. At the same time, the huge 9-colored fireball in front of him completely collapsed in half a breath. In the end, it turned into a 9-colored ray of light that shot over and entered between his eyebrows and disappeared. It was clear that they wanted to end this battle and leave. As such thoughts flashed through their minds, countless experts from the scouting fleets of various factions and clans who were watching the battle from afar were slightly disappointed and sighed inwardly. In the end, he still couldn't see the scene of the desolate supremes falling. The Master of the Magic Hall had some misgivings and was about to leave. Hiss! Just as these thoughts flashed through their minds, an extremely clear sound of ripping silk came from the void in front of them. The violent ape casually tore open a crack in the void, stepped into it, and disappeared. Roar! Screech! Screech! At this time, the black gold giant ant, the silver giant rat, and the other 4 desolate supremes of the Myriad Races Alliance, who had already escaped the seal of the 9-colored fireball, regained their senses. Although they weren't seriously injured, they were in an extremely sorry state. Their bodies were covered with huge blood bags. It was obvious that they were blasted out by the big-headed black rod. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the higher-ups of the scout fleets from various large factions and clans in the distant void immediately gave the order to retreat at full speed. If they were to stay any longer, they might be implicated and become the vent of these four powerful desolate venerables. In the depths of the forbidden land of the rising sun, in Yi Xian's cavern star. Now, a day had passed since the battle of the Myriad Races Alliance. After leaving the Myriad Races Alliance, Yi Xian returned to the forbidden land of the rising sun immediately. However, he did not alarm the higher-ups of the magic hall in the forbidden land. Instead, he directly returned to the cavern star area and entered the magic hall. Because of the successive expeditions against the Star Alliance and the Myriad Races Alliance, he could be said to have fought many battles. There were already signs of a breakthrough in his body. Therefore, as soon as he returned, he immediately returned to the cavern star in order to immediately start a closed-door training and seek for a breakthrough. Rumble! At this moment, suddenly with a wave of his hand, Yi Xian instantly took out the Shenong cauldron. It was suspended behind the giant peak where the magic hall was located, floating in mid-air. With a flash of his body, he stepped into the mouth of the cauldron filled with 9-colored fog. After entering the cauldron space, he sat down cross-legged above the central region volcano in the cauldron space. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! In the next instant, a large number of faint sounds of something breaking through the air rang out. Rays of light shot out from Yi Xian's body and hovered in front of him. This included the all-evil origin liquid, the 9-colored divine herbs, and various other top-grade cultivation resources. There was even a large canopy of gray chaos herbs, which had a circumference of at least 10,000 feet. These were all cultivation resources that he took out from the undying world in his body for this breakthrough. After everything was done, Yi Xian immediately activated the power of the Shenong Cauldron's domain and compressed all the cultivation resources to the size of a nascent soul fist. With a wave of his hand, Yi Xian swallowed this nascent soul fist-sized round bead into his stomach and rapidly dissolved. Whoosh! Rumble! As soon as he swallowed all the cultivation resources, the sound of chains rattling could be heard from his body. All the cultivation resources melted in his mouth and gathered into a majestic river of energy. Accompanied by the sound of thunder, it continued to circulate in the 100 meridians of his body until it was completely refined. When the great river of energy disappeared and completely merged with his spirit and physical body, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. Yi Xian had only gathered his strength to launch a single attack before the shackles were broken. The anticipated system prompt quickly sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through the realm of the ancient Dongshu mantra. Current realm. Primordial Age 7. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through the realm of the physical body. Current realm. Primordial Age 7. Primordial Age 7. This was already the late stage of this realm. Before this breakthrough, Yi Xian's original body was at the 6th level of the primordial era. After activating the power of the ancient demon ape's bloodline in his body, he was able to instantly reach the 7th level of the primordial era. After using the 9 transformations of the demonic ape and reaching the 9th transformation, his battle strength would immediately soar to primordial age 7. Only with the addition of his physical body's majestic blood chi to his cultivation base, his true battle strength would be able to reach the level of a primordial age 8 desolate sovereign. But now, with the arrival of a new breakthrough, Yi Xian would instantly possess the strength of a primordial age 8 after activating the ancient ape demon's bloodline in his body. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. M. Chapter 4830. In this way, once he used the bloodline ability of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape and directly entered the 9th transformation, his peak combat strength would instantly reach the 8th order of the Desolate Ancient Supreme. If he was in the state of his gigantic body of 60 million miles, the majestic chi and blood power that made one's hair stand on end would have an additional level to his true battle strength. At that time, the strongest battle strength that he could display would reach an unprecedented level that was comparable to a 9th-rank Desolate Venerable. This was the so-called half-step Heavenly Tao. In fact, he still had the Blood Sea Secret Technique. If he activated the power of the Blood Sea Secret Technique, he would be able to condense 3 Blood Sea clones in an instant. All of them had terrifying combat strength comparable to the 9th Order Desolate Master. Under such circumstances, if it was a 3-on-1 battle, Even the ninth-order Desolate Master would be crushed by him. If he used the Fallen Sky Bow and other powerful abilities and trump cards, the peak of the ninth-order Desolate Master would only be a half-step Heavenly Dao like the Void Giant Turtle. The existence of the Dao level, if caught off guard, was also very likely to be killed by his arrow. Thus it fell. These thoughts flashed through his mind. At this moment, Yi Xian's heart was unprecedentedly agitated. He suddenly opened his eyes, and a bright light flashed in the depths of his eyes. He only used 7 days for this closed-door training? After calming down the excitement in his heart, Yi Xian pinched his fingers and calculated. The expression on his face suddenly became strange. Ever since he entered the middle stage of the Almighty, the time required for each seclusion breakthrough became longer and longer. However, this time it only took 7 days. It was truly beyond his expectations. However, this was most likely because of the previous battles. Thinking of this, he was relieved. Then, after thinking for a while, he quickly made a new decision. The blood essence of the Almighty in my hands has already accumulated to 49 pieces. I can at least refine 51 pieces of the 29th level Desolate Master's treasure pill. In this case, there is no need to continue waiting. First, I will refine this furnace of Desolate Master's treasure pill. After completing it, I will focus on collecting the blood essence of the Desolate Master used to refine the level 30 Heavenly Dao treasure pill. After saying that, he did not hesitate anymore. He immediately took out the majestic blood mist that was formed by the explosion of the bodies of the desolate ancient almighties, and sent it into the flame pool at the center of the Shinnon cauldron to start the blood essence condensation. After a while, all the blood essences were condensed. Yi Xian once again adjusted his mood and began to refine the second batch of the 29th level Desolate Master's treasure pill. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! With a wave of his hand, the blood essence of the Almighty's treasure pill appeared in his right palm. No more, no less, exactly 49 of them. Moreover, among these 49 blood essences, there were 6 supreme grade items. It was as if one of them was equivalent to 2 blood essences. Just one pill could allow a desolate ancient almighty to break through the bottleneck of the 9th stage in a short period of time and become a real desolate master. At this moment, the 49 supreme expert blood essences that he took out, along with a large number of other top-grade treasures and the primordial life treasure body resources, became the basic ingredients for Yi Xian to refine the level 29 Desolate Sovereign Treasure Pill. However, apart from these 2 most important basic materials, Yi Xian would also add some all-evil source liquid and the top-grade resources that he found in the Hongmeng Void. Although the Desolate Master's treasure pill was no small matter, Yi Xian had already refined a furnace of it before. Therefore, he was not nervous at all this time and was very confident. After all the preparations for the refinement were completed, Yi Xian abruptly waved his hand. In an instant, all the resources and top-grade precious materials required for the formula of the 29th level Desolate Master's treasure pill were taken out. Then he closed his eyes. At the same time, inside the Shinnon cauldron, in the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano in the central region. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Sounds of breaking through the air rang out one after another. Densely packed dark lights of various colors shot out from the mouth of the cauldron above the volcano in the central region. They directly appeared above the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano and suddenly stopped. It was Yi Xian's refinement for this reason. All sorts of top-grade materials and cultivation resources were prepared for the 29th level Desolate Master's treasure pill. In the next moment, a sound like the howling of a gale rang out. Below these top-grade resources, from the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano in the central region, a majestic Shinnon 9-colored flame whistled up. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into a 9-colored furnace that was about 10 feet in radius. Rainbow Furnace. It was small and simple, exuding an extraordinary aura. Immediately after, the Almighty's blood essence and other materials that had been prepared flew up automatically, and entered this small flame cauldron that was only about 10 feet in radius. The refinement of the second batch of 29th level Desolate Master pills officially began. Although this was the second time he had refined it, the amount of almighty blood essence he had invested this time was too much. Therefore, Yi Xian still didn't dare to let down his guard at all. He wholeheartedly controlled everything, focusing on it like never before. As he chanted, one alchemy technique after another appeared in his hands at an extremely fast speed. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a series of obscure and mysterious runes that entered the 9-colored furnace at the bottom of the volcano in the central region. Unknowingly, A month passed in the blink of an eye, but Yi Xian didn't feel it at all. His entire mind was immersed in the refinement of this furnace of desolate master's treasure pill, completely forgetting the existence of time. Boom! It was at this moment that a huge roar sounded above the flame pool at the bottom of the central region in the cauldron. The cauldron, formed purely from the Shenong 9-colored flame, dissipated in an instant. The 9-colored flames rushed back to the flame pool below like a river, and what remained above the flame pool were 55 round beads the size of nascent soul fists. All of the beads were purple in color, and the surface was suffused with an incomparably dense 9-colored mist. There was even a layer of incomparably illusory halo, revealing a simple and heavy aura. It was the level 29 Desolate Supreme Treasure Pellet. Just one of them was enough to make a peak level 9 cultivator of the Desolation Supreme realm break through to level 29 of the Supreme Realm of the Desolation Supreme in a short period of time. It was the Desolation Supreme Treasure Pill. There are 55 of them? Yi Xian abruptly opened his eyes, and a blazing light flashed within them. Looking at the 55 supreme pellets floating in front of him that emitted a dense aura of the desolate sovereign, his expression was stunned, and he instantly sucked in a breath of cold air. As he muttered softly, there was endless surprise. This time, he used 49 blood essences to refine. Because there were 6 of the best quality, one of them could be compared to 2. Therefore, according to Yi Xian's deduction, putting aside the 4 as a base, the probability of refining 51 Desolate Master's treasure pills would reach to 100%. It was a done deal without any suspense. In addition, the probability of 53 pills was about 60%. On the other hand, the probability of obtaining 55 crystals increased by a large margin, to only about 40%. Now that the treasure pills were out, there were 55 of them. The small probability of 40% had become a reality. How could he not be ecstatic? One had to know that a Desolate Master's treasure pill meant that he would have a powerful Desolate Ancient Supreme under his command in the future. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. M. Chapter 4831. Previously, Yi Xian only had 5 level 29 Desolate Supreme treasure pellets left in his hands. Now that he had refined another 55 Desolate Supreme treasure pellets, adding them all together, the total number of Desolate Supreme treasure pellets in his hands had already reached 60. After consuming one, he still had 59 left. Although he had many subordinates, he would be able to reach the level of Desolate Supreme in the future. In other words, the existence that Yi Xian wanted to help them reach this level was definitely only a small number of them. 59 Desolate Supreme treasure pellets were enough. After calming down his incomparably excited state of mind, Yi Xian's figure flashed and instantly left the Shenong cauldron. With a raise of his hand, the treasured cauldron transformed into a ray of light that entered his body. Immediately after, he flipped his right hand and instantly appeared above his palm. 59 Desolate Supreme treasure pellets. Every single one of them emitted a majestic and endless energy aura, causing people to raise their eyebrows. Boom! Rumble! Almost in the next moment, in the void of the universe outside the Life Star, a large number of black tribulation clouds surged over. To think, a lightning tribulation is descending? Hearing the earth-shattering sound of the lightning tribulation, Yi Xian was startled. As he muttered softly, the expression on his face instantly became a little strange. Logically speaking, refining a level 29 Desolate Supreme treasure pellet would not attract a heavenly tribulation. Of course, a level 30 Heavenly Path pellet was completely different. But this time, perhaps because there were too many Desolate Supreme treasure pellets, it unexpectedly attracted a heavenly tribulation. Moreover, from the rumbling thunder that entered his ears and the faint aura of the heavenly tribulation that he could faintly sense, the power of the Desolate Supreme Pill tribulation that descended this time was probably not small. However, Yi Xian was completely fearless. He had just broken through not long ago, so what he wanted was a baptism by a wave of heavenly tribulation. Facing the heavenly tribulation that would cause cultivators to turn pale, Yi Xian did not take it seriously at all. What's more, for the thunder spirit of the Emperor's seal in the Rai Di seal, this heavenly tribulation was probably another opportunity. Thinking of this, Yi Xian no longer hesitated, his figure flashed, and instantly disappeared from the cave star. When he appeared again, he was already outside the forbidden land of Rising Sun, and he walked out from an extremely remote part of the universe. With his departure, the countless tribulation clouds that originally shrouded the cave star disappeared in an instant. They followed him and appeared above Yi Xian's head, covering a vast expanse of hundreds of millions of miles. Roar! At this moment, Yi Xian raised his head and roared. As his hair fluttered in the wind, the aura within his body was completely activated. His entire body was like the hottest human-shaped star. Inside his body, endless light was blooming, bursting out through the 1.08 billion pores on the surface of his body. An ear-piercing crisp sound rang out, and the tribulation clouds in the sky instantly surged even more violently. In just a short breath of time, an incomparably thick purple-gold lightning bolt had already smashed down. Emperor's Seal. With a flash of coldness in his eyes, Yi Xian suddenly waved his hand. After a soft cry, the Rai-D seal hanging above the sea of consciousness in his mind shot out. Screech! Almost in the next moment, the Rai-D seal flew up, and an incomparably high-pitched roar sounded from the Emperor's Seal. This was the thunder spirit of the Emperor's Seal rejoicing. For it, the so-called tribulation was the best opportunity to temper itself. Screech! Almost at the moment the Emperor's Seal appeared, an even more cheerful roar came from the Emperor's Seal, revealing an even more powerful aura of pressure. It was the desolate ancient almighty. Last time, the Emperor's Seal Thunder Spirit had broken through to the third level of the desolate ancient almighty in the thunder tribulation of the black-robed desolate sovereign of the Survivors Alliance. At this time, the roar that came out was the Emperor's Seal Thunder Spirit rejoicing. This kind of tribulation was the best opportunity to temper itself. It could be said that the Thunder Spirit's cultivation strength had skyrocketed last time, and after a period of nourishment and absorption, its current realm had already stabilized. This time, after sensing the powerful aura of the Thunder Tribulation descending once again, the Emperor's Seal Thunder Spirit rejoiced once again. Because this was its opportunity. Moreover, after the baptism of this Thunder Tribulation, the Rai-D Seal would become even more powerful, and the Emperor's Seal Thunder Spirit would most likely transform again. This was a great fortune, so naturally, it was extremely excited. It had a feeling that it could not hold back and wanted to rush out. As usual, I only want the last wave. The first 2 waves will be left to you and the Emperor's Seal. With a faint smile, Yi Xian's firm voice came out of his mouth as he distributed the 3 waves of thunder tribulation that were about to descend above his head. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, the first wave of tribulation lightning above his head had already struck down. Although it fell towards Yi Xian's head, it did not affect him in the slightest. It was all sucked in by the Rai-D seal. Screech! It was obvious that it had eaten enough, and the Thunder Spirit's cheers came from within the Emperor's Seal once again. Very quickly, a second loud cracking sound came from the sky above his head. This time, it was even thicker than the previous one, and it instantly pounced over. Facing this wave of thunder tribulation, Yi Xian still did not move. With his hands behind his back, he allowed the Rai-D seal above his head to absorb the second bolt of lightning. Almost in the next moment, an even more cheerful and tyrannical howl came from within the Emperor's Seal. It was the aura of a middle-stage almighty expert. Desolate Ancient Almighty Level 4. This time, although the Emperor's Seal Thunder Spirit had only broken through by 1 level, this was expected. Even if it could absorb the power of the Thunder Tribulation, it had already entered the middle stage of the Almighty, so it was normal for its cultivation speed to slow down. Gotcha! The last wave of tribulation lightning quickly struck down, and its power was even more terrifying. Although it was still purple-gold in color, its diameter had increased by more than 10 times, giving people the feeling that it was going to destroy the heavens and earth. In this regard, Yi Xian was still unmoved. After curling his lips, he waved his hand and kept the Rai-D seal into his body. Then, his figure flashed, and he directly rushed towards the terrifying tribulation cloud that covered the endless void above his head. Screech! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Under the agitation of his emotions, the violent ape let out a long howl. It did not dodge. Instead, its figure rushed out amidst the howl. In the blink of an eye, it entered the tribulation lightning and was completely submerged. At the same time, the 55 level 29 desolate supreme treasure pills that had just come out of the furnace were casually thrown out by him and hung above his head. This was the desolate supreme treasure pill. Furthermore, the first 2 waves of thunder tribulation were absorbed by the Emperor's Seal and the Thunder Spirit. The last wave of thunder tribulation was shared by him. If it was destroyed like this, then it would be worthless. Rumble! This scene was too shocking. In the vast purple-gold tribulation cloud, a series of terrifying explosions continued. The vast void within a radius of tens of millions of miles was completely enveloped by the sea of purple-gold lightning. In an instant, the galaxy was trembling slightly as if it could collapse at any time. The thunder tribulation raged for dozens of breaths before the vast sea of lightning above his head finally disappeared completely. In the next moment, the vast void of tens of millions of miles was cleared. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A faint sound of breaking through the air sounded. In the next moment, Yi Xian walked out from the void high in the sky. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. M. Chapter 4832. Xiao xiao xiao. In the next moment, Yi Xian walked out from the void high up in the sky. However, there wasn't the slightest wound on his treasure body. It shone brightly and emitted an endless overlord's aura that spread out in all directions. Following, he stretched out his hand, and 55 rays of light fell from the void above his head. They were the desolate supreme pills that had undergone the lightning punishment. Their aura was more condensed and dense. One with a wave of his hand, Yi Xian took out 55 small bottles and stored all the desolate supreme pills in them. Only then did he store them in his undying world. In the next moment, as his figure flickered, he disappeared on the spot. When he appeared again, he was already in the rising sun forbidden land. With a spread of his divine sense, Yi Xian quickly caught sight of the scene outside the cave star. The lightning punishment earlier had obviously alarmed the higher-ups of the magic hall in the forbidden land. They did not know that Yi Xian had returned. Recently, when they heard about the changes in the Star Alliance, they were shocked and excited. Cold, they suddenly realized that Yi Xian had returned when they saw the tribulation cloud above the cave star. However, no one dared to enter Yi Xian's cave star without permission. Hence, they had been waiting outside the star. With a flash, Yi Xian disappeared from the cave star again and reappeared in the void of the forbidden land outside the atmosphere. Pressing according to Yi Xian's previous instructions, the magic hall was still in its early stages of development. Hence, those who were emperors and above were considered the higher-ups of the magic hall. Currently, the higher-ups of the 5 major armies of the magic hall were not many, but they were not many either. Fierce there were Green Ox and Yu Ling Long from the Beast Army, Long Xiao, Gong Jun, Black Wind Tiger, Howling Moon Mastiff, and a few other emperors from the forbidden land of the Rising Sun Forbidden Land. There were also the Sangji tribe from the Survivor Army and the 20 emperors from the forbidden land of the Rising Sun Forbidden Land. There were also the 3-clawed Flood Dragon and Long Shan Tang from the Nomadic Army who had captured the council members and 60 emperors. Edison the captive army consisted of the Blood Wyrm, Green Peng, and Battle Lion race captives. Of course, the 9 great beasts from the Star Alliance had also joined the captive army, along with a few undying emperors. As a result, the captive army could be considered the strongest of the 5 armies of the Magic Hall. Here in addition, the All-Evil Army also had many titled monarchs and above. Among them, the Primordial Porcupine and the Primordial Hairy Tortoise were 2 powerful Desolate-era almighty beings. This Ismani of the upper echelons were currently in seclusion. All along, the strength structure of the Magic Hall had been a little strange. The battleships were strong, and the Desolate Supremes were also extremely strong. Although there was only one Magic Hall Master, he was able to sweep through almost everything. However, there were too few great beings at the level of Universe Knights, Universe Masters, Universe Supremes, and Primordial beings. Even with the addition of the Primordial Porcupine, the Primordial Turtle, and the 9 wild beasts from the Star Alliance, there were only 11 of them. This situation made Green Ox, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, Li Bei, and the rest of the upper echelons feel awkward. They had been suppressing themselves for a long time. As long as there was no war or Yi Xian wasn't assigned any tasks, they would all be in seclusion. Today, Yi Xian walked out of the cave star. He looked up and scanned the magic hall. As expected, more than half of the titled undying emperors and above weren't present. Apparently, they were in seclusion. For example, Green Dragon, the 3-clawed Flood Dragon, and Long Shan Tang were the same. The Primordial Porcupine and the Primordial Hairy Tortoise were the same. However, Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, Li Bei, and the 9 primordial beings from the Star Alliance were all present. Seeing Yi Xian appear, they immediately bowed and congratulated him. Although they didn't know what Yi Xian had just undergone, as long as there was a heaven's trial, it meant that it was a good thing. They should be respectful. Yi Xian's gaze swept over the crowd. He immediately asked about the situation in the outside world. Naturally, there was nothing to ask about the Star Alliance and the Myriad Races Alliance. Those old guys wouldn't dare to disturb them in the near future. There was also nothing to ask about the Alliance of the Survivors. They had already become his subordinates. What Yi Xian was really concerned about was the situation between the Human Federation and the Tianji clan, which was currently at war. Only after asking did they find out that the war between the Human Federation and the Heaven's Legacy race was already in full swing. Moreover, from the start of the war, the powerful Human Federation was faintly showing signs of decline. From this, it could be seen that the strength of the Heaven's Legacy race was simply shocking. After getting a general understanding of the situation, Yi Xian immediately ordered his subordinates to pay close attention to the battle between the Human Federation and the Tianji clan. If there were any major changes, they were to report back immediately. After that, he ordered his subordinates to seize the time to enter seclusion. After exchanging pleasantries, he immediately flew back to the cave star. He wanted to use this time to deduce the perfect formula of the level 30 Heavenly Path treasure pill again to make sure that there were no mistakes. Because, what he needed to collect next was the blood essence of the Desolate Sovereign to refine the level 30 Heavenly Path treasure pill. In the surroundings of the star field occupied by the Human Federation, today, this vast and boundless void area had long been transformed into a huge battlefield in the starry sky. The Human Federation and the Tianji clan were currently fighting here and had been going on for some time. Towering in the center of the cosmic void hundreds of billions of miles ahead was an incomparably huge star. This huge star was the Tianji City. Today's Tianji City was no longer purely made of the latest type of cosmic alloy. DE had used the entire power of the Tianji clan to collect all kinds of top-grade flesh and blood materials from everywhere, such as the dragon tendons of the true dragon, the phoenix marrow of the fire phoenix, the dragon spine of the black dragon, and so on. These creatures of the Desolation era were extremely powerful when they were alive. Even though they had been dead for countless years, their remains were still very powerful. However, the Tianji race had plenty of ways to divide them up and use all kinds of suitable materials to transform the cold Tianji city made of pure cosmic alloy into a biochemical fortress made of cosmic alloy and the flesh and blood of the Desolation era creatures. For example, today's Tianji city, other than its original regular continental form and its wartime spherical fortress form, it now had two other simulated forms. If necessary, in a short period of time, the incomparably huge Tianji city, which contained terrifying combat power, could transform into an incomparably huge demonic dragon or a black phoenix with shocking wingspan at DE's command. For example. In addition, whether it was clan leader DE or all the official members of the Heaven's Legacy clan, in the past 100 years, their cultivation and strength had been changing and improving at a rapid pace. They used the countless powerful creatures of the Desolation era in the void to improve their cultivation. Just like how they transformed the Tianji city, they collected top-grade materials such as dragon tendons and phoenix marrow to transform their own mechanical bodies step by step. For example, some of the more powerful members of the Tianji clan had even given up on their human bodies and transformed into the skeletons or precious bodies of the Desolation era creatures. From the inside out, they were carefully sculpted step by step. Finally, their electronic consciousness took over. With a shake of their bodies, they became powerful Desolation era creatures with the addition of technological power and elements. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile reading website. M. Chapter 4833. However, even within the Celestial Legacy clan, no one knew where DE's original body was, what form it was in, and what level of power it had reached. It could be said that the Celestial Legacy clan of today was completely different from the Celestial Legacy clan of 100 years ago. This time, the entire clan had modified more than 100 billion battleships. Among them, there were more than 10 million official members of the Celestial Legacy clan, who could transform into metal balls in the shape of stars at any time, or all kinds of mechanical beasts with different appearances. 10 million clansmen might not sound like a large number, but without exception, all of them were above the undying level. Among them, there were tens of thousands of Universe Knights, close to 10,000 Universe Masters, close to 1,000 Universe Supremes, and close to 100 great beings from the primordial era. Besides, in addition to the transformation and evolution of all the official members of the clan, the Celestial Legacy clan also used the remains of powerful primordial life forms to create a large number of intelligent robots that weren't in human form. Their combat power was astonishing, and they were called mechanical beasts. The number of these mechanical war beasts modified by the Heaven's Legacy race was almost innumerable. In truth, they were created from the corpses of various primordial beings with technological elements added into them. For example, the scales and skin on their bodies were the latest biochemical products. Right now, in the void battlefield around the star domain occupied by the Human Federation, there were all sorts of massive mechanical warships that resembled wild beasts, as well as mechanical war beasts of different shapes and attack methods. There were simply too many of them. They filled the entire battlefield. Wang. Hong. Hong, long, long. At this moment, the higher-ups of the Celestial Legacy clan seemed to have issued another order. In an instant, the entire vast void space was filled with a buzzing sound like a tide. This was the sound of countless battleships charging their cannons at the same time. With a huge roar, countless mechanical battleships in the shape of wild beasts fired their cannons at the same time. In the blink of an eye, countless energy pillars of varying diameters shot forward from different angles before finally converging together. This scene was so shocking that the void space turned into a blazing net of light that enveloped an endless area and whizzed forward. Hong. Hong, long, long. Although they were also ship cannons, these new battleships that had been modified by the Celestial Legacy clan looked like gigantic beasts from the outside, so the energy light pillars from the ship cannons were obviously more powerful. In the opposite void space, countless battleships and battleships of the Human Race Alliance traversed the void space, and there were even a few superstar fortresses with a diameter of 1 million meters. However, in the face of the overwhelming number of mechanical desolate beasts, the energy light pillars shot out from their mouths were easily destroyed. The smaller ones directly exploded into fireballs. Even some fortresses of various sizes or superstar fortresses with a diameter of 1 million meters were barely able to put up an energy shield to defend themselves. In the face of such overwhelming attacks, it was impossible to counterattack. That was Celestial Owl Legacy? Was. During this period of time, countless mechanical beasts of the Celestial Legacy clan had been destroyed. Even the main battleships in the form of desolate beasts had been damaged. However, ever since the Heaven's Legacy race had descended upon this fragment of the great desolate world, the first thing they did was to set up a large number of assembly lines for mechanical war beasts on the countless abandoned planets in the vast star field 100 billion kilometers away from the Human Race Federation. What was put into these lines were all intelligent machines. Once the assembly lines were set up, there was immediately a large number of mechanical beasts that were continuously transported out. Even the main battleships in the form of desolate beasts that were damaged in the war could be immediately withdrawn and returned to the base to be rapidly repaired. This was the frightening part of the Celestial Legacy clan. Although there were only 10 million of them who possessed electronic life forms, they were only the leaders of the upper echelons. The true power of the lower echelons were all manufactured. As long as they had resources, they could produce a large number of them. Clearly, they did not lack resources. Every abandoned planet contained large amounts of minerals, and the wreckage of the battleships that had been destroyed in the war could be melted down. Thus, they had an almost endless supply of mechanical beasts. On the other hand, although the Human Race Federation also had intelligent robots, their production efficiency could not compare at all. Moreover, the Human Race Federation's battleships had to be manned by their clansmen. The destruction of every battleship represented the loss of a large number of clansmen. It was precisely because of this that, although the Human Race Federation and the Celestial Legacy clan had both suffered losses, to the Celestial Legacy clan, it was practically nothing. The damaged battleships were dragged to the rear and melted down, looking brand new after half a day. However, the Human Race Federation's losses were extremely heavy. The loss of battleships was a small matter, but more importantly, the casualties of their clansmen were even more severe. No matter how large the human race's population was, they could not withstand such losses. Moreover, this was a completely meaningless loss that did not even cause much damage to the enemy. Such unequal losses directly caused the Human Race Federation's front line to retreat time and time again. The void between the two factions had originally been 100 billion miles apart, but now it had shrunk to around 80 billion miles. Over this period, the Celestial Legacy clan had pushed forward 20 billion miles with such a tyrannical attitude that they could not be killed or maimed. On the other hand, the Human Race Federation was clearly on the losing side. Since the start of the war, the Celestial Legacy City had been standing in the void 100 billion miles away from the human race. There were many smaller planets on both sides behind it, and each of them was a mechanical fortress just like the Celestial Legacy City. Those who stood guard here were all the higher-ups of the Celestial Legacy clan, but they did not make any unusual moves. Instead, they imperceptibly exuded a frightening presence. At the same time, at the edge of the Human Race Federation's planetary system, although the imperishable 9 stars did not appear, the Sky Extinction Palace that resembled a giant wormhole vortex and the Temple of Glory that was as large as a giant planet were also standing in the void, waiting in formation and staring covetously. Kachak! All of a sudden, the metal sphere that was the celestial legacy city seemed to come to life. A low humming sound echoed from within, accompanied by a dense kachak sound, as if countless mechanical gears were turning and grinding together. Moreover, as the kachak sound filled the air, the giant metal sphere was rapidly changing form. Protrusions extended from various parts of the sphere, and in less than half a breath, it had turned into a green-black demonic dragon. Its body was extremely huge, spanning almost 100 million miles, and was even bigger than the sphere it was in before. Even Yi Xian, who was in the 9th transformation of the 9 transformations of the devil ape, was several times smaller than it. What was even stranger was that this green-black demonic dragon's entire body also emitted a dazzling metallic luster, which was extremely dazzling. It was clearly a demonic dragon forged from synthetic metals. Chapter 48-34. Swish! Swish, swish, swish. Right at this moment, countless air-breaking noises resounded in the void in front of them. From the ferocious and incomparably huge mouth of the metal demonic dragon, streaks of light suddenly rushed out one after another. Their momentum was majestic, and their numbers were overwhelming. There were at least tens of millions of them. In the beginning, these tiny lights were just tiny metal balls with metallic luster of different colors on their surfaces. But soon, after the tiny metal spheres came to an abrupt halt in the void, low humming and mechanical grinding noises could be heard from within as well. Along with these strange noises, the sphere's shape also rapidly changed. In the end, it transformed into various astral beasts of different shapes. Each of them was tens of millions of kilometers long, as large as a small star. Their shapes were strange and ferocious, and they had the characteristics of different ferocious beasts. Their surfaces were suffused with a faint metallic luster, and they were like mechanical ferocious beasts of different shapes. In this void, there were originally a large number of mechanical beasts, but now, there were at least tens of millions of them. Their auras were terrifying, and they were all above the undying realm. Among them, there were even many emperors and emperors. Some of the beings with even larger bodies exuded auras that were at the level of Universe Supreme, Universe Master, and Universe Supreme. The Heaven's Legacy race had finally made a new move. Previously, the battle between the two factions had only been at the level of ordinary battleships and battleships. Although the Tianji clan had a large number of mechanical beasts and desolate beast battleships, they were all below the immortal rank. It was the same for the Human Federation. But now, perhaps because this massive mechanical army had only managed to advance 20 billion li, Patriarch DE of the Celestial Legacy race began to grow impatient. The Heaven's Legacy race had finally begun to mobilize an unconventional fighting force. This was definitely a huge investment. The moment he made a move, he sent out tens of millions of ordinary undying high-level mechanical battle beasts. Among them, there were even quite a number of Universe Knights, Universe Masters, and Universe Supremes. Even Tianji City had transformed from its original star form into the gigantic alloy demon dragon form of 100 million miles long. The situation of the battle instantly rose to another level. Everything happened so fast that the leaders of the Human Federation were caught unprepared. With the arrival of these tens of millions of advanced mechanical beasts above the immortal realm, countless experts in the battleships and battleships of the Human Clan Federation in the opposite void instantly exclaimed in horror. A strong sense of fear that could not be dispersed rapidly spread in this void. All regular warships and battleships are to retreat and return to the star field to rest and reorganize. That was when a majestic voice suddenly echoed from the Sky Jew Palace, which was slowly whirling like a giant nebula. The Sky Jew Palace and the Temple of Glory have both dispatched a legion of high-end combat forces. Boom! Rumble! As soon as the order was issued, the overwhelming warships and battleships of the Human Clan Alliance in the Void immediately activated their kinetic cabins to the maximum and retreated into the star zone like stray dogs. During this period of time, the bottom-level experts of the Human Alliance were all terrified. If they were fighting survivors or ferals, they would at least have flesh and blood and no one would fear them. But it was different when fighting against the Tianji clan. Once they remembered that the Tianji clan weren't living humans or even electronic lifeforms, but merely cold sentient robots and mechanical beasts, they would definitely tremble in fear even if they were not afraid of death. As the battle continued, the Human Federation had destroyed hundreds of millions of warships and battleships, with no small number of human champions inside each of them. The total number of dead would probably be in the billions. In a large-scale battle of this scale, individual lives were insignificant, and no one would know when they would suddenly be gone. Now that they could return to the star field, No one would want to stay a minute longer. Soon, the vast number of battleships and battleships of the Human Federation retreated like the tide, leaving this vast battlefield empty. But soon, streaks of light shot out from Sky Absolute City and the Temple of Glory at the edge of the starfield, charging toward the battlefield in the void. There were both human champions and ferals, but without exception, the aura emanating from their bodies were all above a mortal realm, and there were quite a few Universe Knights, Universe Masters, and even Universe Supremes among them. There were also more than 10 million of them, which was equivalent to the number of advanced mechanical beasts gushing out from Sky Absolute City. But these were clearly only the mid-level combat forces of both camps. The true top-level combat forces were those at the level of primordial beings and supreme primordial beings, but both camps had yet to use them. On the Human Federation's side, there were a total of 6 supreme primordial beings among their reinforcements. Including D-Air, who had just broken through to Desolate Master Realm, the Human Federation now had a total of 7 Desolate Masters. But no one knew if that was the actual number. After all, the Immortal 9 Stars, Sky Absolute Palace, and the Temple of Glory had all arrived. These were the core ancestral grounds of the 3 factions of the Human Federation, and there were many ancient beings hibernating there. Who knew how many of them would suddenly awaken? As for the number of Desolate Masters and Supreme Primordial Beings on the Tianji clan's side, it was even more of a mystery. Logically speaking, the Tianji clan had only been created tens of thousands of years ago by Xing Bo, the pioneer of the human race's technology camp. Before that, this clan did not even exist, and there should not be any Desolate Masters. But this clan's growth rate was too shocking, and their ability to create and fuse machines was simply outrageous. Before the clan migrated from the first universe, the Tianji clan might not have had supreme primordial beings, but after they disappeared for 100 years, they obtained a large number of treasured remains of primordial beings in the void, including many Desolate Masters and supreme primordial beings. With the Tianji clan's powerful ability to create and fuse machines, this 100 years was enough for DE to create some Desolate Masters or even powerful mechanical beasts, or even electronic life forms. It was just that all of this had yet to be revealed. However, as this battle became more and more intense, the level of battle strength on the battlefield would become higher and higher. It was believed that the Heaven's Legacy race and the Human Federation's top-notch battle strength, such as the Desolate Supremacy Realm, would all appear one after another. And this was what Yi Xian wanted to see. The reason why he had not interfered in the war between the Tianji clan and the Human Federation was because he wanted to see the true strength of these 2 factions. And to see this, he obviously had to pay a certain price. Now that Yi Xian had stayed out of it and let them fight each other, it was the most comfortable thing for him. Chapter 4835. Boom! Rumble. In the void, earth-shattering explosions rang out, densely packed and continuous. The escalating war had begun. As far as the eye could see, the void was much emptier than before. The previous conventional war had been a competition of numbers. Whether it was the Human Race Federation or the Tianji clan, both had deployed a sea of battleships, mechanical beasts, and so on. The entire void battlefield spanning hundreds of billions of miles was almost filled to the brim. The Celestials' legacy race had clearly taken this conventional war into consideration. They had an almost endless supply of mechanical beasts. Although the Human Race Federation also had intelligent robots, their production efficiency was completely incomparable. Moreover, the Human Race Federation's battleships had to be manned by their clansmen. The destruction of every battleship represented the loss of a large number of clansmen. Ever since the Tianji clan had arrived in this void fragment of the Eldritch world, they had immediately set up a large number of assembly lines for mechanical beasts on countless abandoned planets in the vast star field that was hundreds of billions of miles away from the Human Race Federation. Even the main battleships in the form of wild beasts that had been damaged in the war could be immediately withdrawn and returned to the base for rapid repair. The reason why DE had launched a conventional war in the starry sky from the beginning was that he intended to fight a war of attrition with the Human Race Federation. This was the terrifying aspect of the Tianji clan, as well as their advantage. Unfortunately, although the Tianji clan had set up assembly lines in this void fragment of the Eldritch world at the very beginning, there was an almost endless supply of mechanical beasts of various levels. However, they had obviously underestimated the foundation of the Human Race Federation. In the previous arrival, the Human Race Federation's core ancestral lands of the 3 major camps had all been moved here. The City of Glory seemed to be only the size of a giant planet, but it clearly used space-folding technology. The space inside was a world of its own, and there were countless experts who had joined the original Human Race Federation inside. Among the 2 major camps of the human race, the inside of the 9 immortal stars, the ancestral land of the science and technology camp was also not simple. Moreover, just these 9 giant planets could accommodate countless battleships and people. In addition, the Tianjue Palace, the ancestral land of the human clan, was simply a nebula vortex that looked like a cluster of light. No one knew what was inside, but one thing was certain. The space inside must be very large, and similarly, it was a world of its own. In this battle, the Heaven's Legacy race truly hadn't suffered any losses at the very beginning of the battle. All of the mechanical war beasts that had been destroyed had been dragged back to the base in the rear to be melted down and rebuilt. What was wasted was only some energy-level resources. However, in this vast universe, there was no lack of them. On the other hand, although the Human Clan Federation had lost a lot of warships and battleships and tens of billions of people, the Human Clan Federation still had a lot of resources. It was impossible to see that they were almost exhausted. If this continued, it was unknown how long this battle would last. In the end, the leader of the Heaven's Legacy race, DE, lost his patience and started the battle at the intermediate level. Now, not only did the Human Clan Federation withdraw all of its battleships from the battlefield, the Heaven's Legacy race also did the same. All of the mechanical war beasts below the Undying Realm retreated back to the base camp in the star field 100 billion miles away. As a result, the situation of the battle at this part of the void was instantly different from before. The number of soldiers participating in this battle was shockingly small. The soldiers from both camps were all at the Undying Realm or above, and their combat power was at the Universe Supreme level. There were more than 10 million of them, but in this part of the universe, which was billions of miles away, they were not very eye-catching. However, although they were few in number, they were all beings at the Undying Realm or above, and the most powerful ones were even Universe Supremes. Therefore, the situation of the battle was even more intense than before. Hum, long. In the void, the earth-shattering roars continued without stopping for a moment. Every minute, every second, there were experts from both sides falling. This time, the Heaven's Legacy race also suffered a great loss. The tens of millions of advanced mechanical war beasts they sent this time were not official members of the race. After all, there were only about 10 million official members of the Heaven's Legacy race who had electronic life forms, and every one of them was very precious. Basically, they were all high-ranking commanders and would not be used as soldiers in a concentrated battle. However, although the advanced mechanical war beasts were also intelligent robots, they were superior goods. If they were damaged in battle, they could be repaired or even reconstructed. However, in terms of time, they were not like ordinary mechanical war beasts at the Undying Realm or above. They could be reconstructed in an instant and go back to the battlefield. Therefore, in this kind of battle between the Undying Realm and the Universe Supreme level, the casualties on both sides were somewhat evened out. The human clan's declining trend of retreating was temporarily stopped. After a long battle, the Heaven's Legacy race had pushed forward 20 billion miles from the 100 billion miles between the two camps. However, since the beginning of the battle at the intermediate level, 10 days had passed in the blink of an eye. Although the army of the intermediate level of the Heaven's Legacy race had also pushed forward, it was only about 5 billion miles. The speed of advancement was much slower than before. Such a scene was obviously beyond DE's expectations. Initially, he had wanted to exhaust the Human Federation's forces at the conventional level, but in the end, he had failed. Now, he was confident that the Heaven's Legacy race had a strong foundation in the intermediate level, so he had withdrawn the forces at the conventional level and replaced them with those at the Undying Realm and the Universe Supreme level. Who would have thought that the Human Federation's foundation at this level was not weak at all? From the beginning of the battle until now, it had been more than a month. The distance between the two camps was only 100 billion miles, but the Heaven's Legacy race had only pushed forward 25 billion miles, which was only a quarter of the distance. This was really unacceptable to DE. After all, even if the army of the Heaven's Legacy race had left the 100 billion miles behind, they had only reached the edge of the Human Federation's starfield. If they wanted to seize the territory of the Human Federation, they had to continue to push forward. It could even be said that the real battle would only begin after the 100 billion miles had been pushed forward. Such a slow progress of the battle made DE gradually impatient. Just as he was about to give the order to start the high-level battle in advance, a sudden change occurred. Shoo! With a faint sound of breaking through the air, a fine light suddenly rushed out of the giant starry sky wormhole 10 billion miles in front of the Human Federation's starfield. It was D-Air, who had already entered the primordial supreme level. He had disappeared for a period of time, and now that he had suddenly reappeared, There was no doubt what it meant. The automaton race was about to descend. Chapter 4836. DE and D-Air were both intelligent life forms created by the human race's technological pioneer, Xing Bo. The first to be created was DE. However, it was said that DE betrayed Xing Bo and murdered him. He also betrayed the human race and established the Tianji clan. He created a large number of intelligent robots and grew rapidly. In the end, he chased the human race, who originally lived in the first universe, to the third universe. This was something that happened tens of thousands of years ago. Ever since DE's betrayal and Xing Bo's death, D-Air had never seen DE again. He became the state preceptor of the human clan's science and technology faction's immortal dynasty. He also created a clan, which was the so-called mechanical clan. In essence, the Tianji clan and the machinery clan were actually the same. They were both electronic intelligent life forms. However, due to their different camps, no one had ever confused the Tianji clan and the machinery clan together. Unlike the Tianji clan, who became the overlords of the first universe after occupying it and enslaving countless slave clans in the first universe, the machinery clan created by D-Air rarely appeared in front of the world. Even after the starry sky changed drastically and the human race's technological camp's core ancestral land, the machinery clan did not appear when the immortal dynasty arrived in this void fragment of the Eldritch universe not long ago. However, since then, D-Air, who had been guarding the headquarters of the Human Federation, had disappeared. It had been a few months since then. Now, he had finally reappeared. Moreover, he had charged out of this giant wormhole. Based on this point alone, one could conclude that D-Air had returned to the third universe during this period of time. The purpose of his return was obviously to bring the entire machinery clan, which had never appeared in front of the world, to this void fragment of the Eldritch universe. Now, with D-Air's return, the machinery clan, which had never appeared in front of the world, was obviously going to be unveiled soon. This scene attracted everyone's attention. Not only did the higher-ups at the edge of the Human Federation's star territory turn their heads to look, but even in the Tianji city, which had transformed into a gigantic metal demon dragon 100 million miles in size, and in the many metal spherical stars around it, many divine consciousnesses extended over. At this moment, even the tens of millions of experts from both sides who were fiercely fighting in the center of the battlefield, which spanned 1 billion miles, stopped and temporarily retreated. When they turned their heads, their gazes converged on this giant wormhole. Swish, swish, swish. After D-Air rushed out, he immediately returned to the edge of the Human Federation's planetary system, standing in the void in front of the Skyju City and the Temple of Glory. However, he also turned his head to look at the giant space bug. Almost in the next instant, from this space wormhole, there was a continuous sharp sound of something breaking through the air, followed by streaks of light. All of the strands of light that rushed out of the wormhole instantly expanded with the wind and soon stopped abruptly in the cosmic void outside the wormhole. It was indeed the mechanical race. These lights were clearly mechanical battle beasts of varying sizes. The small ones were like meteors, while the big ones were like stars. All the mecha beasts were in different shapes. Some were in the shape of various astral beasts, while others were in the shape of battleships or battleships. But without exception, these mecha battle beasts all had powerful auras, at least Sector Lord level. This was obviously a change that had only happened in the past 100 years. Back then, when Yi Xian was still wandering around the 3 great starry skies, the strength of the machinery race was definitely not so terrifying. Otherwise, they would have already swept through the world. Over the last 100 years, the Tianji race had grown so rapidly because they had obtained a sea of corpses of powerful ancient beings in that mysterious void. As for D-Air's automaton race, they had never shown themselves. They were clearly hiding in an unknown part of the universe. In the past 100 years, the automaton race had grown at an astonishing speed. Now that one of their members had become a sector lord, they had most likely encountered a similar opportunity as the Heaven's Legacy race. After all, with the end of the primordial era, the Great Void had descended. The moment of arrival was getting closer and closer. Even the mysterious primordial void was undergoing huge changes. The other fragments of the void, including the current void and the 3 main starry sky planes, were naturally undergoing huge changes as well. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, large amounts of light continued to shoot out from this giant wormhole. This scene lasted for half a day. The void was incomparably quiet. Everyone was quietly watching and waiting, the shock in their hearts growing stronger. Half a day later, everything finally ended. Finally, there were no more lights shooting out from the giant wormhole. It had completely stopped. At this time, in the void in front of the wormhole, various forms of mecha beasts had already covered the sky and earth, filling up a large part of the cosmic void. At a glance, the total number had actually exceeded 100 million. These 100 million mecha beasts of different shapes and sizes were obviously the entire mechanical race. 100 million did not sound like a lot, even a little pitiful. After all, in the previous battle, the Tianji race had mobilized billions of desolate beast-shaped modified battleships. The number of mecha beasts was even more uncountable. It could be said that there was a sea of them. But in reality, when seeing these 100 million mecha beasts of different shapes and sizes, even the divine sense extended from the giant metal demon dragon of Tianji City, which was 100 million miles away, began to tremble violently. This was clearly a sign of extreme shock. This metal demon dragon of over 100 million miles in size was one of the two major battle forms of Tianji City. Those who could guard Tianji City were obviously the true core higher-ups of the Tianji race. Perhaps one or more of these divine senses belonged to DE and his doppelganger. But they were also trembling violently, revealing a sense of shock. The dignified clan leader of the Tianji race was actually shocked by the 100 million mecha beasts of the mechanical race. This sounded very illogical, but it was actually understandable. Although the desolate beast battleships and mecha beasts of the Tianji race could be said to be innumerable, they were all intelligent machines without life. The total number of Tianji race clansmen who truly possessed electronic life was only slightly more than 10 million. But now, although these 100 million mecha beasts of different shapes and sizes in front of the giant wormhole were not life forms of flesh and blood, their bodies all exuded the unique aura of life forms. Very obviously, these 100 million mecha beasts were all members of the mechanical race with electronic life forms. In other words, there were only slightly more than 10 million official members of the Tianji race with electronic life forms. But the Tianji race had more than 100 million, which was 10 times the number. Just based on this point alone, it was not difficult to understand DE's shock. Roar. Roar. Screech. At this moment, more than 100 million members of the mechanical race suddenly raised their heads and let out angry screeches. Then, an even more shocking scene occurred. Chapter 4837. Roar. Screech. Hong. Hong long long. In front of the giant space wormhole, more than 100 million automaton clansmen suddenly raised their heads and roared. Then, an earth-shattering roar resounded like a tide, instantly enveloping the entire space. During this, there was also a dense and hair-raising sound of machines breaking in. Under everyone's gazes, these 100 million automaton clansmen of different sizes and shapes, but all of them looked similar to various space beasts in appearance, instantly began to transform. As the transformation of appearance rapidly unfolded, the automaton clansmen of different sizes also gathered in groups of 2s and 3s, and rapidly merged. This scene was like a fusion of transformers. Different numbers of automaton clansmen, in just a few breaths' time, merged into one body. Some had 3 to 5 combined bodies, some had more, 7 to 10 combined bodies. In one place with the most, there were actually dozens of automaton clansmen fusing. In the blink of an eye, the original 100 million automaton clansmen were reduced to 10 million. The number had decreased by 90%. However, the 10 million automaton clansmen that appeared now were not only larger in size, but most of them had already exceeded the size of an ordinary planet. Even their forms had changed. Although they were still space beasts, they were more ferocious. Although they were formed by the fusion of different numbers of automaton clansmen, they were a single entity, and there were no signs of fusion or splicing. It was as though they were born this way. At a glance, these 10 million newly formed automaton clansmen basically all had the bloodline characteristics of different space beasts. This meant that their defense and attack abilities were also more diverse and stronger. They might even have some special space beasts like the Bug Clan and other special space beasts. Besides, after the fusion, these 10 million gigantic automaton clansmen's strength had also increased by a large margin. Previously, when there were only 100 million of them, the weakest among them was at the Sector Lord level. But now, after the fusion, the weakest among these 10 million automaton clansmen was at the ordinary immortal level. 10 million ordinary Undying Realm and above automaton clansmen didn't seem like much. After all, in the middle-level battle that had just come to a temporary truce, the Human Race Federation and the Heaven's Legacy race had each sent out more than 10 million Undying Realm warriors. However, this was clearly only the first fusion, and it wasn't over yet. Boom. Rumble. Very soon, an earth-shattering rumble resounded like a tide, enveloping the entire space as the second fusion began. Mechanical grinding noises that were so dense that it made one's hair stand on end came from the void. The more than 10 million mechanical clansmen that had just finished fusing began to change their forms once again. As this change unfolded, the more than 10 million machine race clansmen instantly gathered in groups of 2s and 3s, and merged with each other. In just 3 breaths of time, everything was completed. Originally, there were more than 10 million mechanical beasts that had undergone the first fusion. Now, there were only slightly more than 1 million mechanical beasts left. However, these more than 1 million mechanical beasts that had undergone the second fusion all grew in size. Now, the smallest of them was almost the size of an undying star, like a huge star. However, in terms of form they were still space beasts. Of course, after the second fusion, these more than 1 million mechanical beasts already had the characteristics of many different beasts. In reality, these space beasts probably didn't exist. As for cultivation level, the weakest of the 1 million automaton beasts were Emperor-level Undyings, while the strongest were Universe Supreme level. And there were quite a number of them, over 1,000 however, this still wasn't the end. Boom! Rumble! In the void, the earth-shattering roar that resembled a tidal wave rang out once more, and there was also the sound of machines grinding together so densely that it made one's hair stand on end. The more than 1 million mechanical beasts that had just finished the second fusion began to change forms once more. As this change unfolded, the more than 1 million mechanical beasts like the previous 2, gathered in groups of 2s and 3s, and fused with each other. The third fusion took a little longer, but it only lasted for a dozen breaths of time before it was complete. After a dozen breaths of time, the more than 1 million mechanical beasts that had undergone the second fusion decreased by 90%. Now, there were only a few 100,000 left. Every single one of them was gigantic, spanning close to 100 million miles. Compared to the gigantic metallic demonic dragon in Tianji City, which was 100 million miles away, they were only slightly smaller. As for their forms, they were all different kinds of space beasts, but they were extremely ferocious. At first glance, they were like prehistoric beasts, and it was a ghastly sight. After the third fusion, the weakest of the 100,000 mechanical beasts had become Emperor-level Undyings, and the strongest of them had even reached the primordial Great Being level. And there were quite a number of them, more than 100. This was more than 100,000 emperors and more than 100 primordial Great Beings. Just based on the current situation, it was definitely more than the Tianji clan of the same level of power. Furthermore, this was only the third fusion. Since there had already been 3 fusions before, then the 4th and 5th fusions should be possible in theory. Putting aside the 5th fusions for now, since the 4th one had yet to appear, it was still too early to talk about it. However, even if it was only the 4th fusion, according to the pattern of the previous 3 fusions, the 100,000 mechanical beasts would be reduced by another 90%. There would only be slightly more than 10,000 of them left. Although there were only slightly more than 10,000 of them, the smallest of the mechanical battle beasts that had completed the 4th fusion would probably be comparable to the gigantic metallic demonic dragon that the Tianji city had transformed into billions of miles away. In terms of cultivation level, even the weakest of them would probably be at the Universe Knight level. As for the strongest, theoretically speaking, they would even be at the level of a Desolate Supreme, and there should be more than a dozen of them. 10,000 mechanical beasts, with the average cultivation level being above that of a Universe Knight, and there were at least a dozen of them at the level of a Primordial Supreme. Although the number was small, it was definitely a terrifying army of mechanical beasts, and it could be said to be invincible. However, it was still a mystery as to whether the 4th fusion would actually happen. At this time, the entire boundless void had fallen into a deathly stillness. The gazes of countless experts were focused on the more than 100,000 mechanical beasts that had undergone 3 fusions, revealing a strong sense of nervousness and anticipation that couldn't be dispersed. Chapter 4838. Time passed slowly. Previously, in the short time it took for half an incense to burn, the more than 100 million automaton race members that had rushed out of the giant wormhole had rapidly completed their 3rd fusion. Originally, there were more than 100 million of them, but after 3 rounds of fusion, the number was reduced to a few 100,000. However, although the number had decreased, their combat power had increased tremendously. They had become more than 100,000 automaton battle beasts with Emperor level and above, and there were even more than 100 primordial great beings among them. Just based on the current situation, they had definitely surpassed the combat power of the Tianji clan of the same level. This formation was already extremely powerful, but it had not reached the level where it could cause the Tianji clan to be alarmed. After all, although there were many primordial great beings among them, there was not a single true primordial supreme being among them. Everyone was waiting, waiting for these more than 100,000 automaton battle beasts that had completed their third fusion to complete their fourth fusion. They wanted to see if, after the fourth fusion, they would become more than 10,000 beings with power levels above the universe night level, and there would be at least a dozen powerful primordial supreme beings among them. However, after another half an incense worth of time, these more than 100,000 automaton battle beasts that had completed their third fusion still did not show any signs of activity. Only the shockingly powerful auras in their bodies were glaring fiercely at the Tianji clan army that was 100 billion miles away. Even their leader, Dr. was the same. After another half an incense worth of time, there was still no sign of activity. This basically explained the problem. At least for now, the fourth fusion would not begin. No one could determine whether this anticipated fourth fusion was temporarily unable to begin, or if Dr. was deliberately not doing so. This was a mystery. Everyone, including the upper echelons and countless great beings of the Human Race Federation camp, were guessing in their hearts. Very obviously, the upper echelons of the Tianji clan army that was 100 billion miles away were definitely thinking the same thing. The void space fell into a deathly silence. It was frightening and nerve-wracking, and even their hearts were slightly trembling. Finally, after a short while, a low voice transmitted from the Tianji clan camp that was 100 billion miles away, breaking this unbearable silence. Dr. You've surprised me. Who would have thought that in these tens of thousands of years, there would already be more than 100 million members of the human automaton race. And you're actually not developing your power. Instead, you're walking a different path from the Tianji clan of mine. You're walking a path of integration. This is indeed shocking, and the effect is not bad, but what about your fourth fusion? Just these 100 primordial great being level automaton battle beasts are probably unable to contend with the Tianji clan under my command. Han Yang. This was obviously the voice of the Tianji clan leader, Dr. Of course, he was an electronic life form, and he could appear in different forms after entering different forms. Even his form was already like this, not to mention his voice was even more so. However, at the very least, this was the first time that the higher-ups and countless experts of the Human Federation had heard the voice of Dr. the patriarch of the Heavenly Legacy clan. At this moment, many people had a strange feeling in their hearts. Dr. the leader of the Tianji clan, was not an ordinary person. He had created the Tianji clan and had dominated the three main dimensions of the starry skies for tens of thousands of years. Now, to be able to hear his voice with their own ears was already a shocking matter. However, this was only the feeling of other people. To Dr. was no different. He was the same existence as him. At this moment, in the face of Dr's slightly sarcastic provocation, Dr., who looked like an old man from the human race, only laughed faintly. Then, he raised his hand and pointed at the hundreds of thousands of automaton battle beasts that had just completed their second fusion in the void space in front of him. He said unhurriedly, Dr. I know you and you know me. Although we haven't seen each other for tens of thousands of years, whether these hundreds of thousands of automaton race members can complete their fourth fusion, could it be? You don't have any idea in your heart? It had to be said that although Dr's words were gentle, they imperceptibly revealed a domineering aura. In the void space opposite him, Dr., who was hibernating in the gigantic metallic demon dragon that was more than 100 million miles in size, actually fell silent because of this. No one understood Dr. better than him. However, at the same time, the changes of tens of thousands of years made him completely uncertain about Dr. Just like the strength that he had already displayed today, which was far from the true foundation of the Tianji clan, how could the third fusion of the automaton race that Dr. had just displayed be Dr's true foundation? In fact, whether these hundreds of thousands of automaton battle beasts could immediately complete their fourth fusion was no longer important to him in this battle. More importantly, due to the arrival of Dr. and the arrival of the entire machine race, in today's battle, the Heaven's Legacy race wanted to expel the Human Federation from this star domain 100 billion kilometers away in one go. Their plan to occupy the vast and boundless star domain that they currently resided in, which was filled with countless life forms, could no longer be realized. Since this was the case, then there was no need to continue to stay here and scheme against Dr. As the clan leader of the Tianji clan, he had more powerful and more trump cards. Although this battle ended abruptly and did not achieve their original goal, this was only temporary. Not long after, with the arrival of the second battle, everything would change. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Dr. instantly made a decision. He did not even send out the sound of his divine consciousness again, and did not pay attention to Dr. anymore. It was as if he did not exist at all and was completely ignored. Imperceptibly, De gave the order to retreat to the Tianji clan army under his command. Boom! Rumble! Following his order, in this vast void of the universe that spanned hundreds of millions of miles, there was an earth-shattering roar in an instant. The tens of millions of Tianji clan's elite automaton battle beasts, whose cultivation level was generally above the immortal realm, retreated one after another. During this process, their incomparably huge bodies rapidly shrank. In just a few short breaths, tens of millions of elite automaton battle beasts had all turned into small round balls. Like lightning, they pierced through the void and shot out, one after another, into the gigantic metallic demon dragon's bloody mouth. Gotcha! Gotcha! Almost in the next instant, densely packed and extremely ear-piercing mechanical grinding sounds were heard. This metallic demon dragon, whose body was more than 100 million miles long, began to transform. In less than 10 short breaths, it had turned back into a metallic ball that was like a giant star. Finally, with a whoosh, it shot backward and retreated to the depths of the star domain that the Tianji clan occupied, hundreds of millions of miles away, and disappeared. At the same time as the Tianji clan retreated, a large number of smaller metallic stars were spread out in the void. In less than half an incense stick's worth of time, the opposite void was cleared. This battle, because of the arrival of D-Air and the entire machine clan, hurriedly ended. Chapter 4839. In a short period of time, the other side of the void battlefield that spanned hundreds of billions of miles was completely empty. All the warships and mecha beasts of the Tianji clan were connected to the depths of the star sector that was hundreds of billions of miles away. As for the Human Federation army, after receiving the order from the higher-ups, they quickly retreated. In just a short time, only a few small patrolling fleets could be seen in the void. In the end, even the Sky Extinction Palace, which was like a giant nebula vortex, and the Temple of Glory, which was like a giant continent, slowly retreated into the depths of the star sector, disappearing from sight. Even D-Air brought the entire mech clan that had fused together into hundreds of thousands of powerful mecha beasts and retreated into the star sector, hundreds of billions of kilometers away. The scout fleets from the major clans and forces left one after another. However, everything that happened here was like a heavy bomb that quickly exploded in the void of the fragment of the untainted world. One day later, in the Human Federation star sector, in the Great Hall of the Federation headquarters. At this time, there were not many figures in the Great Hall, only about 40 people. Previously, there were only a few primordial great beings in the Great Hall of the Human Federation, as well as the Senate of the 10,000 Luo Federation that had formed the Human Federation in the void of this chaos fragment. However, this time, the reinforcements from the 3 factions of the Human Federation had arrived. In terms of primordial great beings alone, the 3 factions had sent 12 of them, making a total of 36 of them. As such, including the few great beings who had been here before, the Human Federation now had a total of 40 great beings from the primordial era. The higher-ups of the Federation present in the Great Hall were these 40 great beings, in addition to D-Air, who had just broken through to the Supreme of the Primordial Era and was now a rank 1 Baron Supremacy. As for the 6 ancient Baron Supremacies that had come from the 3 factions, they did not appear. The meeting was jointly hosted by the higher-ups of the 3 factions. Although D-Air was the imperial advisor of the Eternal Dynasty, he was now a Baron Supremacy. Coupled with his status as the clan leader of the Tianji clan, his presence in this meeting was somewhat extraordinary. He sat on the side of the seat of honor, as if he was a supervisor. There were 3 figures sitting on the main seat of the meeting. They were from the Temple of Glory, the leaders of the 3 factions. All 3 of them were primordial great beings. 2 of them were humans, and 1 was an elder with a feral aura in his body. Of the 2 humans, 1 was the neverless emperor of the human race's technology faction, while the other was Zhu Wuqian, lord of the Sky End Palace. As for the other old man whose body was emanating the aura of a feral, he was the cardinal of the Temple of Glory, named Qi Shaohong. Turning to look at the higher-ups of the Temple of Glory Federation, the immortal emperor's expression was solemn. After a short pause, he continued, "The Tianji clan has become stronger. Moreover, in this battle, De did not reveal his true strength. It is worrying. According to my calculations, even with the addition of the machine race that has just arrived, our human race federation will only be able to fight to a draw with the Heaven's Legacy race. But in reality, besides the Heaven's Legacy race at the front, there is also the Demon Hall behind us." That's right. The Magic Hall is a huge hidden danger. On the side, the Palace Master of Tianju Palace, Zhu Wuqian, took over the conversation and also looked around the crowd. Then, he continued, Although I don't know what kind of fortuitous encounter that Heavenly River Star's Star-Lord, Yi Xian, had, but his true battle prowess is equivalent to that of the Demon Palace's master. The master of the Magic Hall and Yi Xian, once they join forces, the threat they pose to the Tianji clan is no less than that of the Tianji clan. They are a huge threat to the Humans Federation. This point can be seen from how the master of the Magic Hall took advantage of the war between the Humans Federation and the Tianji clan to launch a surprise attack on the Beast Alliance, Star Alliance, and 10,000 Races Alliance. He killed dozens of Primordial Era experts by himself. Although we don't know why he killed so many Primordial Era experts, the Humans Federation is the only faction with the most Primordial Era experts left. We don't know how strong the Tianji clan is, so he won't choose them as his opponent. At least he won't before we know more about them. Therefore we can't not be on guard against the Magic Hall. Based on the current situation of the Humans Federation, if we are suddenly attacked by the Master of the Magic Hall, the Tianji clan will definitely take advantage of the chaos and come. When that happens, we will be attacked from both sides. The situation will be very dangerous. 3-1. This matter must be taken seriously. It's not raining yet. A cold glint flashed in Qi Xiaohong's eyes at that, and he nodded. I have a suggestion. Send envoys to the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 Races at once. After all, they are from the three main planes of the stars just like the Human Federation. Moreover, the situation they are facing now is even worse than the Humans Federation. If we invite their leaders to come here and hold a summit to discuss the merger of the three alliances, it should be able to proceed smoothly. Although the Primordial Era experts of the two alliances have been killed, there are still 9 Supreme Primordial Era experts. They definitely can't be underestimated. If the Alliance Summit can successfully agree to the merger, a powerful behemoth will appear out of nowhere. Whether it's the Magic Hall or the Tianji clan, they won't dare to act rashly. At that, Qi Xiaohong stopped talking and exchanged glances with Immortal Emperor, Zhu Wutian, and Di Air. Meanwhile, the 40 or so mighty beings in the Alliance's upper echelons in the hall began to discuss with each other. It was a suggestion that made their hearts beat faster. The so-called three major alliances referred to the alliance forces from the three major starry sky main planes. The Alliance of 10,000 Races was formed by the slave races of the First Universe, the Star Alliance was formed by the races of the Second Universe, and the Humans Federation was formed by the Temple of Glory and the Humans Federation. Although the three alliances had their own camps, they were all from the three main planes of the stars. And now, they had a common enemy in the form of the Tianji clan and the Magic Hall. That was why an alliance between the alliances was clearly feasible. And it was imperative. Moreover, once the three alliances successfully joined hands after the summit, the overall strength of this new behemoth would be immeasurably powerful. After all, the strength of any one of the three great alliances was already extremely frightening. As for the Star Alliance, after the bloodthirsty War Lion brought the Blood Wyrm, Green Rock, and War Lion races to migrate here, the Alliance's conventional military strength increased by 20 billion warships. Unfortunately, the original 25 Supreme Primordial Era experts had either fallen or surrendered in the battle against the Master of the Magic Hall. Now, all of them were dead, and not a single one was left. However, at the top level, there were still the 9-headed Blood Wyrm, Blue Sky Rock, Crimson Unicorn, and 9 Phantom Demon Crocodile. With the addition of the bloodthirsty War Lion, whose strongest combat strength could reach the desolate supremacy of rank 7, there were 5 Supreme Primordial Era experts in total. Chapter 4840. As for the Alliance of 10,000 Races, the Dimensional Rats, Infernal Ants, Giant Ferocious, and Slime Wraith had all migrated here, increasing their military strength by 40 billion warships. However, the Master of Magic Hall's ambush had killed 24 late-stage superior beings of the Star Alliance. Now, their top fighting force was only left with 4 mid-stage Primordial Supremes. Finally, there was the Human Federation. Not long ago, with the arrival of the Immortal 9 Stars, Sky Absolute Palace, and the Temple of Glory, the Human Federation's military strength had skyrocketed. Compared to the Star Alliance, the Alliance of 10,000 Races, and the Magic Hall in the Forbidden Land of the Rising Sun, the Human Federation was practically the strongest. Aside from the tens of billions of warships, they had 36 Supreme Beings, 36 Primordial Supremes, and even 6 Supreme Primordial Supremes. Including Di Air, who had recently ascended to Desolate Venerable, the Human Federation now had 7 Desolate Venerables. Although they had just fought a great battle against the Celestial Clan, losing billions of warships, and losing tens of billions of Alliance champions, they had not lost any of their core fighting force. In fact, the arrival of D-Air and the entire automaton race had boosted the Human Federation's overall strength to another level. Generally speaking, the overall strength of the current Human Federation had definitely surpassed that of the Devil Palace. However, it was still difficult to draw a conclusion when compared to the Tianji clan. This was because even in the previous battle, DE had not displayed the high-end combat strength of the Tianji clan, which was above the level of the remote antiquity. How many primordial supremes and desolate venerables the Celestial clan had was still a huge mystery. However, compared to the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 Races, the Human Federation was clearly the leader of the three alliances' summit. If the summit came to an agreement and the three alliances combined into a new behemoth, their conventional fighting force would be over 200 billion warships and warships. In terms of high-end fighting force, aside from the automaton race, they would have over 40 primordial supremes and 16 supreme primordial supremes. Such a force would be more than enough to fight the Magic Hall and the Celestial clan head-on, and they would even have the upper hand. Therefore, D-Air, Immortal Emperor, Zhu Wutian, Qi Xiaohong, and all the other almighties of the Human Federation were confident that the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 Races wouldn't refuse this summit. Instead, they would support it with both hands. Under these circumstances, the decision of the three alliances was unanimously passed. Under the orders of Immortal Sovereign, Zhu Wutian, and Blazing Rainbow, 2 diplomatic fleets departed from the Human Federation, heading to the Star Alliance and the Federation of all races respectively. 7 days later, in the galaxy of the Human Federation. The Human Federation thousand star 1,000 races alliance 1,000 alliance. After all, the Human Federation was the strongest of the three alliances, and the summit had been organized by the Human Federation. The Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 Races had only been invited to attend. Although it was called a summit, it was just a simple meeting of the upper echelons. There wasn't much extravagance involved. After all, the three alliances weren't having a good time. The Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 Races had just lost over 20 of their primordial supremes. Even the Human Federation hadn't suffered any real damage in their battle with the Celestial clan, but they had still lost billions of warships and tens of billions of Federation experts. Under such circumstances, even if the summit was held by the top echelons of the three alliances, it would still be embarrassing if it was too extravagant. Today was the agreed date for the meeting. At the same time, in the central region of the Human Federation, dozens of figures could be seen in the Great Hall of the Federation headquarters on the peak of a giant living planet. The number of people was the same as 7 days ago when the leaders of the Federation gathered. They were all the primordial supremes of the Human Federation. There were a total of 40 of them, and there was also D-Air who had recently broken through to the Desolate Sovereign level. As for the other 6 Desolate Sovereigns of the Human Federation, they still hadn't shown up this time. It was said that they had more important matters to attend to. Therefore, in this three alliances summit, the Human Federation's main representatives were still D-Air, Immortal Emperor, Zhu Wutian of the Sky Extinction Palace, and Qi Xiaohong of the Temple of Glory. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! A faint sound of air braking could be heard. 4 figures suddenly shot out from the atmosphere of the planet where the Human Federation headquarters was located. The 4 figures looked like they were all humans, but their bodies were filled with a thick aura of ferocious beasts. Obviously, their current human form was just a disguise. The 4 figures were the 4 primordial supremes of the Alliance of 10,000 Races. They were the infernal ants, dimensional rats, giant ferals, and slime wraith from the first universe. As for their cultivation level, they were all mid-tier primordial supremes. The weakest was at the 4th level of this realm, while the strongest was at the 6th level of this realm. At this moment, the 4 desolate elders from the Myriad Races Alliance had unsightly expressions on their faces. It was even to the extent that one could faintly sense a strand of forcefully suppressed fury from the auras that emanated from their bodies. After all, they had been tortured by the Master of the Magic Hall not too long ago. At the time, their bodies were covered in bloody bumps, and it was only 2 to 3 days ago that they were fully recovered. Moreover, in addition to that, the 24 primordial supremes of the Alliance of 10,000 Races were all killed by the Master of the Magic Hall. As a result, only the 4 of them from the entire Star Alliance had come to attend the summit of the 3 great alliances. It was indeed a little shabby. All of this surged into their minds, evoking a towering resentment towards the Master of the Magic Hall. It would be strange if their expressions were good. Seeing this, D-Air, Immortal Emperor, Zhu Wutian, and Qi Xiaohong exchanged glances. They immediately got up, put on smiles on their faces, and walked out of the Alliance headquarters. The 40 or so primordial supremes of the Human Federation in the hall also got up to follow them. "We are honored by your presence. This old man didn't greet you properly. Sorry for my lack of manners." Although D-Air's identity was only the state preceptor of the Human Federation's Science and Technology faction, he was after all the existence with the strongest cultivation level among the higher-ups of the Federation present. Moreover, he was also the leader of the machine tribe. Therefore, after the group walked out of the hall, he was the first to greet them. With a smile on his face, he greeted the 4 desolate sovereigns who were descending from the sky. He was very polite and enthusiastic. Only then did the 4 desolate sovereigns from the Alliance of 10,000 races relax slightly. Their faces twitched, and they squeezed out an extremely ugly smile as a response. The atmosphere between the guests and the host instantly became much more harmonious. Chapter 48-41. Rumble. Crack. Outside the atmosphere of the planet where the Human Federation headquarters was located, a muffled clap of thunder suddenly sounded, followed by the crisp sound of ripping silk. A crack appeared in the air. It was not very big, only about 1,000 feet in radius, but the aura that came out of the crack was extremely powerful, and there was more than one of them. Whoosh! Whoosh whoosh whoosh! In the next moment, 5 figures rushed out of the crack, passed through the atmosphere of the planet, and landed on the towering peak where the Human Federation headquarters hall was located. These 5 figures also looked like humans, but the aura that came out of their bodies showed that they had the bloodline of the ferocious beasts in them, and it was very strong. As for the aura of their cultivation, they were all in the supreme primordial realm, with the weakest being a 1st-level desolate venerable, and the strongest being a 7th-level desolate venerable. These 5 were the 5 desolate venerable old monsters from the Star Alliance, the Scarlet Unicorn, the 9 ghastly demon crocodile, the 9-headed blood dragon, the Azure Rock, and the blood-devouring war lion. Of course, the blood-devouring war lion was not actually a desolate venerable. His cultivation level was only at the 6th level of the primordial realm, but this time, he was invited to the Human Federation to participate in the 3 Alliances summit. Of the 25 primordial realm experts from the Star Alliance, some had died, and some had surrendered. Only the 5 of them were left, which was a little shabby. Therefore, before coming, the blood-devouring war lion deliberately activated the bloodline ability of the 9 changes of the Berserk Lion and performed the 9th change. As a result, his cultivation level reached the 7th level Desolate Venerable. 4 Desolate Venerables and 1 Supreme Primordial Realm Expert. How could 5 Desolate Venerables and 1 Supreme Primordial Realm Expert compare to, at this moment, with the arrival of the blood-devouring war lion, D-Air and the other Supreme Primordial Realm Experts, as well as the Desolate Venerable Old Monsters, stood up and greeted each other before taking their seats in the hall. As far as the eye could see, there were more than 50 figures in the main hall. Among them, there were 10 Desolate Venerables, and the rest were all the higher-ups of the Human Federation. The lineup was so luxurious that it was shocking. Fellow Taoists. First greetings after everyone was seated, D-Air turned to look at the other 9 Desolate Masters from the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 Tribes. He smiled and said, "This Alliance Summit is of great significance. There are still 6 awakened Desolate Masters from the Human Tribe Federation who are supposed to attend. However, those 6 fellow cultivators are working together to carry out an important arrangement and have no time to spare. Therefore, I hope that fellow cultivators can forgive this matter." Speaking of this, his expression darkened, and he suddenly changed the topic. "I'm sure all of us are aware of the current situation of this fragment of the primeval age. The reason why the Human Federation proposed the 3 Great Alliance Summit this time is to unite the forces of the 3 Great Alliance together and defend against the Magic Hall and the Heaven's Legacy race. I wonder if the 9 fellow Taoists have any different opinions on this matter?" After he finished speaking, the Scarlet Unicorn, the 9 Demon Crocodile, the 9-headed Blood Dragon, the Cyan Rock, and the Blood-Devouring Lion from the Star Alliance, as well as the other 4 Desolate Masters from the Alliance of 10,000 Tribes, immediately turned their heads and exchanged glances. Then, after thinking for a while, they expressed their opinions one after another. The atmosphere in the hall gradually became heavy and solemn. The meeting didn't last long because the merger of the 3 Great Alliance was inevitable. Not only did the Human Federation want to see this result, but the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 Tribes also wanted to see this result. Otherwise, the 9 Huang Zun Old Monsters of the 2 Great Alliances wouldn't have come to participate in the so-called 3 Great Alliance Summit. After some discussion, the dozens of high-level experts of the 3 Great Alliance unanimously approved the merger of the 3 alliances. They even decided on the name of the alliance after the merger. According to them, The reason for the merger of the three great alliance was to fight against the Tianji clan and the Magic Hall. And the Magic Hall and the Tianji clan, without exception, all of their actions were against the heavenly Tao and were evil. Therefore, after the merger of the three great alliance, the alliance would comply with the heavenly Tao and eliminate evil. It would be called the Heavenly Tao Alliance. Henceforth, the Heavenly Tao Alliance was established, but it hadn't been announced to the public yet. After all this was decided, the second topic was brought to the table, which was the cooperation and reinforcement of the three great alliance. This time, the ultimate purpose of the three great alliances summit to discuss the merger was to fight against the Tianji clan and the Magic Hall. Therefore, this so-called alliance naturally couldn't be just a formality in name. It had to be implemented, otherwise it would lose its meaning. However, regardless of whether it was the Human Race Federation, the Star Alliance, or the Alliance of 10,000 Races, without exception, each of them occupied a vast space in the universe and were separated by a great distance. This way, if one of the alliances suddenly fought against the Magic Hall or the Tianji clan and needed the help of the other two alliances, the powerful beings in the alliance would be able to make it in time. However, for those below the level of a powerful being, even if they were universe supremes, they wouldn't be able to make it in time. As for conventional forces such as battleships, it would take a long time to travel from one alliance to another. It was likely that the war would end halfway through the journey. With this in mind, the high-level experts in the hall quickly reached a consensus after a round of discussion. That was to build a space wormhole in each of the star domains of the three great alliance. These three space wormholes would be jointly built by the desolate elders of the three great alliance. They were specially made directional wormholes that could only be used to travel between the star domains of the three great alliance. This way, if one of the alliances needed help, although the other two alliances were separated by a great distance, they would be able to mobilize their armies immediately through the wormholes deep in their star domains. After the decision was made, Air and the 9 desolate elders from the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 Races immediately took action. A group of people first flew out of the star and headed to a remote space deep in the star domain of the Human Race Federation. With their combined efforts, a directional wormhole with a diameter of more than 10 million miles was successfully built in less than half a day. Building a wormhole like this wasn't a simple matter. However, this was originally a fragment of space in the universe, so the Heaven Way was incomplete. In addition, there were obvious signs of changes in the universe recently. Therefore, with the cooperation of the desolate elders, the wormhole was built without any setbacks. It was extremely smooth. Then, Air followed them to the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 Races. After 10 days, they finally built the other 2 directional wormholes. From this moment on, the Heaven Way Alliance formed by the merger of the Human Race Federation, the Star Alliance, and the Alliance of 10,000 Races had real meaning. It was no longer just empty talk. Chapter 48-42. It had been almost a month since the end of the war between the Tianji clan and the Human Federation. Over the past month, there had been no unusual movements on the side of the Heavenly Legacy race, and it seemed to be the same on the side of the Human Race Federation. At the very least, the scout fleets of the various major forces that were lying in wait outside the star field of the Human Race Federation did not discover anything unusual. In fact, the Star Alliance and the Alliance of 10,000 Races were the same. It could be said that during the month after the end of the war between the Tianji clan and the Human Federation, this vast and boundless chaos fragment suddenly became quiet, giving people an inexplicable feeling of strangeness. However, before the various forces and races could come to their senses, the Human Federation, the Star Alliance, and the Alliance of 10,000 Races suddenly jumped out and jointly announced that from this moment on, the 3 alliances would merge and form the Heavenly Tao Alliance. Once the news spread, it immediately caused an uproar. All the big and small forces and clans in the void of the untainted land were shocked. However, the shocking news was that the reason why the 3 alliances merged and formed the Heavenly Tao Alliance was to target the Tianji clan and the Magic Hall. But regarding this matter, neither the Magic Hall nor the Tianji clan expressed any opinion. The master of the Magic Hall and De acted as if they had never heard of this at all. The forbidden land of the rising sun, Yi Xian's cavern star. Whoosh! A faint sound of breaking through the air was heard. A light rushed out of the cavern star and stopped abruptly in the cosmic void outside the atmosphere. It was Yi Xian in the form of a demon ape. In the cosmic void outside the cavern star, a group of high-ranking members of the Magic Hall were standing respectfully. However, not all of them were present. Most of them were in seclusion, including the primordial porcupine, the primordial turtle, the green ox, and the 9 powerful ominous beasts from the Blood Dragon clan of the Star Alliance. In front of the group of high-ranking members, the strongest were Zhao Dong, Qian Nan, Sun Shi, and Li Bei. Zhao Dong's group of 4, the primordial porcupine, the primordial hairy tortoise, the azure ox, and the 9 wild beasts who had recently joined the Blood Flood Dragon tribe of the Star Alliance had already reached an agreement. Usually, when there was no war, they would take turns to guard the magic hall, while the others would be in seclusion to cultivate. This way they wouldn't delay each other as much as possible. Currently, it was Zhao Dong's turn to be on duty. The 4 of them had already reached the 7th level of Universe Knight, and their cultivation speed was shocking in the outside world. However, it was normal in Demon Palace. This was all thanks to the purple crystal medicine, the 9-colored godly medicine, and the primal chaos medicine. In the past month, Yi Xian had been in the Demon Palace at the peak of the towering mountain in the Immortals Cave Star. He had just come out of seclusion after deducing the perfect pill formula for the level 30 Heavenly Dao treasure pill for the second time. Hence, he didn't know about the changes that had happened in the outside world in the past month. After listening to Zhao Dong's report of everything that had happened in the past month, Yi Xian's eyes flashed, and he fell into deep thought. He was surprised by the news. First, it was the arrival of the entire automaton race under D Air. From what they had shown at that time, the overall strength of the automaton race was not to be underestimated. Now that they had joined the Human Federation, their combat power was obviously stronger. In addition, the merger of the Human Federation, the Star Alliance, and the Myriad Race Alliance to form the Heavenly Dao Alliance had caught him off guard. Just by hearing the name, he knew that the Heavenly Dao Alliance was set up to deal with the Magic Hall and the Tianji race. Now, with the formation of the Heavenly Dao Alliance, the original 3 alliances had merged into a super behemoth. Just the confirmed awakening of the desolate venerable old monsters numbered 16. This was the result of not counting the automaton race under D Air. Otherwise there would be even more. Moreover, according to Yi Xian's guess, the so-called Heavenly Dao Alliance was not as simple as just being established in name. If there were no accidents, the 3 alliances must have a response plan that could help each other at any time in a short period of time, such as building wormholes in each other's star areas. In this way, the Magic Hall would be under great pressure. No matter which alliance they attacked, it would be equivalent to starting a war with the 3 alliances at the same time. Moreover, in the void of the fragment of the untainted land, there was an equally powerful Tianji race that hadn't really revealed its high-end combat power yet. It seems that the situation is getting more and more serious. After thinking and muttering, Yi Xian's eyes flashed and he murmured softly, "It seems that it's time to gather all the forces that are still scattered outside." After saying that, he turned to look at Zhao Dong and the other 3 with a serious expression. "Of the 4 of you, 3 stay in the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun, and the other ones secretly go to the Survivors Alliance and tell Black Robe. It's time to go home." Ah! Hearing this, Zhao Dong and the other 3 were stunned at the same time, and the other higher-ups of the Magic Hall behind them were also shocked. When Yi Xian subdued the powerful figure in the black robe of the Survivors Alliance, the whole process was carried out secretly, and the outside world did not know about it. Although the powerful figure in the black robe came to the Magic Hall once and asked Yi Xian for a level 29 Desolate Supreme Elixir, Yi Xian did not disclose the specific details of this matter to his subordinates. Now that she heard his words, she realized everything. Being caught off guard, she couldn't help but be shocked. However, Zhao Dong and the other 3 never had any doubts about Yi Xian's instructions. After receiving the order, Zhao Dong immediately left the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun quietly. Yi Xian also did not stay in the nest, because in addition to the Survivors Alliance, there was another force that had been wandering outside, and that was the Sky River Star area. But this matter could only be done by him personally. Xiao. After Zhao Dong left, Yi Xian waved his hand and dismissed the higher-ups of the Magic Hall in front of him. Then, with a shake of his shoulders, his whole body instantly transformed into a fine light and shot out. After quietly leaving the Forbidden Land of Rising Sun, he went straight to the Sky River Star area. In the depths of the star area occupied by the Survivors Alliance, on the peak of a towering mountain in the east of the giant green life star. In the Alliance Palace, there were more than 200 figures sitting there at the moment, and all of them were Universe Knights and above. More than half of them were Universe Knights, more than 100 of them were Universe Masters, more than 40 of them were Universe Masters, and 24 of them were Universe Supreme Masters. All of them were the higher-ups of the Survivors Alliance. In addition, there were 3 powerful figures of the Primordial Era. However, even these 3 powerful figures of the Primordial Era had a look of respect on their faces at this time, and their gazes converged on the black-robed Desolate Master, who sat high above in the palace. The reason for this was not only because the black-robed desolate master had recently broken through from the 9th level of the complete primordial era to the 1st level of the supreme primordial era. More importantly, it was because of the great hope that he brought to the higher-ups of the Survivors Alliance present. Chapter 48-43. In the Sky River Star Zone, in the main control hall of the flagship of a superstar fortress with a diameter of 1 million meters. All the high-level officials of the Sky River Star Zone were gathered in the hall. This included Old Devil Mosquito Butcher, Naples, Devil King Mo Wention, Demon King Imperial Uncle, Dark Tortoise Clan Leader Ming Jiao, Mad Mosquito Emperor, Old Man Shen Yuan, Old Man Duan Mu, Abbess Bodhi, and other small sects and clans. Of course, there were also the 3 girls, Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru. 3-1. Quick update. At this time, the atmosphere in the hall was somewhat oppressive and gloomy. This was because the holographic screen in front of them was playing the earth-shattering battle that had taken place in the void outside the human territory a few days ago. The situation of the battle was very clear, including the changes of the Heavenly Legacy Clan and the 4 fusions of the mechanical beasts of the Machine Clan. The Heavenly Legacy Clan and the Machine Clan have arrived, and they have brought their entire clans here. The situation in this void fragment of the untainted land is getting more and more serious. After the images of the battle brought back by the Sky River Star Zone scout fleet were all played, Old Devil Mosquito Butcher turned his head and glanced at everyone with an extremely solemn expression. After a short pause, he continued, "In addition, the Star Alliance, the Alliance of 10,000 Clans, and the Human Federation have also announced a merger a few days ago, jointly forming the Heavenly Law Alliance. This is obviously a move against the Heavenly Legacy Clan and the Magic Hall. As for the other forces, the Survivors Alliance has been holed up and has not made any moves. Few of the survivors have even left the Star Zone where the Alliance is located, and the Ferocious Beast Alliance has been directly eliminated. Now, in this vast void fragment of the untainted land, except for the Magic Hall, the Heavenly Legacy Clan, the Heavenly Law Alliance, and the Survivors Alliance, the most eye-catching force is our Sky River Star Zone. The other small forces and clans are nothing at all and will not attract much attention. Moreover, whether it is the Heavenly Legacy Clan, the Star Alliance, the Alliance of 10,000 Clans, or the Human Federation that form the Heavenly Law Alliance, they all have old grudges with our Sky River Star Zone. In this case, we are already in a very dangerous situation. These 2 major powers could attack at any time." Lin Yun sighed. "Unfortunately, we don't even have a single Desolate Era expert in our Sky River sector. It's really unsettling." Originally, with the massive amount of top-level resources left behind by Yi Xian, it was only a matter of time before a large group of top-level experts emerged in the Sky River domain. But the problem is that we don't have the time now. Now that the situation is getting more and more serious, even if I want to do closed-door training, I can't rest assured. I'm afraid that one of these big forces will suddenly come to our Milky Way star area and cause trouble while I'm still in closed-door training. This is not a pleasant situation. Without a good enough environment for development, our Sky River sector will never be able to make a name for ourselves." Speaking of this, Old Devil Mosquito Butcher seemed to suddenly think of something. His face darkened, and he shook his head with a wry smile. He sighed faintly. It's a pity that Yi Xian hasn't come back yet. Otherwise, with his battle strength, the 7 girls, and the 9 Black Dragons cultivation, the high-end battle strength of our Sky River sector could barely hold the fort. The situation we just talked about will no longer exist. All the high-level officials will be able to cultivate in peace and quickly improve their cultivation and strength. If he comes back, he will come back by himself. At most, he will come back with the 9 black loaches. Before Old Devil Mosquito Butcher could finish his words, the Purplish Warbler's face darkened. He gritted his teeth and muttered, "As for the 7 foxes, if he dares to bring them home, I will run away from home. Yes, that's what I mean. At most I won't come back. Yes or no, we can't spoil this bad habit of men. If he brings back 7 foxes the first time, what will happen in the future?" This time, Xiaocha is also on the 2 sisters' side. There's no room for discussion. Hearing this, Old Devil Mosquito Butcher, Naples, Demon King Mo Wention, Demon Uncle, Clan Leader Ming Jiao of the Dark Turtle Tribe, Mad Mosquito Emperor, Old Man Shen Yuan, Old Man Duan Mu, Abbess Bodhi, and other high-level officials of small idol forces and families looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Their faces were full of helplessness. Although the 3 girls were a little unreasonable, from their point of view, it made sense. They were truly speechless and had no way to judge this matter. If Yi Xian was really here, they wouldn't even know where to start persuading him. Boom! Hiss! At this moment, in the universe void outside the Sky River sector, there was suddenly a shocking clap of thunder, followed by a very clear sound of cloth tearing. A crack appeared in the void, and a violent ape of the starry sky stepped out. It was Yi Xian, who had rushed over from the forbidden land of the rising star. This was the first time that he had come to the Sky River sector in person, and the purpose of this trip was only to guide them. At this time, with the roar of thunder outside the atmosphere of the star, Old Devil Mosquito Butcher, Naples, Demon King Mo Wention, Demon Uncle, and other high-level officials of the Sky River sector, who were in the middle of a meeting, were first stunned, and then their expressions changed greatly. Then they all gasped and cried out in alarm. Who is this? He tore through the void and came here without any hesitation. I'm afraid he's not here with good intentions. What a powerful aura, it's definitely Old Devil Huang Zun. Oh no, don't tell me he's touching a sore spot. We've just talked about this matter, and now the enemy is here? With the current situation of the Sky River sector, let alone Old Devil Huang Zun, even if it's just a remote antiquity-era mighty figure, he can still do whatever he wants here and wreak havoc everywhere. Amidst the exclamations, all the high-level officials in the hall stood up one after another, and their power was surging to the extreme. Even if their cultivation was not strong enough to fight against Supreme Ancient Devil Huang Zun, since the other party had come to bully them, there was no reason for them to be trampled on. Even if they had to die, they could only fight back. This included Shenyuan Ziying, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru. All of them had extremely heavy expressions on their faces while the energy within their bodies was circulated to the limit, causing them to seethe with killing intent, and they seemed as if they intended to fight desperately. Yi Xian was unaware of all this. At this moment, after arriving, with a shake of his shoulders, he instantly passed through the atmosphere of the Sky River sector and came to the interior of the star. He turned his head and glanced around. At the same time, he extended his divine sense and instantly determined the location of Old Devil Mosquito Butcher and the others. Whoosh! Almost in the next moment, Bao Yuan's figure flickered, and in the blink of an eye, he turned into a ray of light and shot away, disappearing from where he was. When he reappeared, he was already in the huge hall at the top of the towering peak of the Sky River sector. As soon as his figure appeared, the figures of the high-level officials in the hall immediately appeared in Yi Xian's line of sight. All of them were surging with murderous intent, as if they were going to fight to the death with him. He was stunned on the spot. His face froze and he suddenly felt embarrassed. It seems that I'm not very popular. Chapter 48-44. With the appearance of Yi Xian, the higher-ups of the Sky River sector in the main hall were all stunned. Their hearts, which had been in their throats, instantly fell back to their chests. They had originally thought that the visitor would be a high-level enemy of the Tianji clan or the Heavenly Dao Alliance. They had not expected that this time, the Demon Hallmaster would come in person. He had even come to the starfield and appeared directly on the Sky River star. He must have come here for something important. Thinking of this, Old Ghost Mosquito Butcher immediately went up to greet him. He was the only one present who knew the true identity of the Master of the Magic Hall. Last time, when Yi Xian left behind a batch of resources, there was also a jade scroll, which explained everything. However, Yi Xian did not intend to reveal his identity yet, so Old Ghost Mosquito Butcher had never revealed this matter to anyone. No matter how much the Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru pestered him, he had always kept his mouth shut. Everyone, the current situation in this void is a little complicated. It is no longer suitable for the Sky River sector to live here alone. After exchanging pleasantries with Old Ghost Mosquito Butcher, Naples, the Demon King Mo Wention, the Demon King Imperial Uncle, the Dark Turtle Clan leader Ming Jiao, the Mad Mosquito Emperor, and the other higher-ups of the Sky River sector, Yi Xian changed the topic, looked around at everyone, and then said, "This time, I have come here to guide you. The entire Sky River sector shall migrate to the forbidden land of Rising Sun." Hearing this, the upper echelons of the starfields in the hall were all stunned. As for Shenyuan Ziying, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru, the three girls, after being stunned for a moment, they immediately rolled their eyes and sneered. The three of them originally suspected that the master of the magic hall was Yi Xian, and now they were even more certain. On one hand, even if the master of the magic hall had a good relationship with Yi Xian, there was no need for him to come here personally for this kind of thing. He could have just sent one of his subordinates to guide them. On the other hand, when Yi Xian looked around at everyone, He did not look at these three girls. He did not deliberately reveal this flaw. While it was as if these three girls had dog noses. When Yi Xian was in the three main planes of the universe, no matter what identity he used, they were the first to see through him. Women were too direct. Yi Xian did not dare to make eye contact with them. Otherwise, he would most likely be recognized immediately. However, what he did not expect was that it was precisely this point that made the three girls even more certain of their guess. When they thought about how Yi Xian had actually tried to deceive them, the three girls gritted their teeth in hatred. They exchanged glances and immediately made their stance clear. Their tone was firm and unquestionable. That's fine. Let's move the entire Sky River sector. But us three sisters won't be going with them. That's right. Let's go find Yi Xian. That little bastard is too much. He's been tossing us aside for almost 100 years while he's enjoying himself outside. We have to find him. I heard that his beautiful servant appeared in the Star Alliance not long ago. Sister Ziying, why don't we go there? Besides, he and the Tianji clan are sworn enemies. Perhaps he has already infiltrated the Tianji clan. If we can't find him in the Star Alliance, we can go to the Tianji clan's headquarters for a stroll. This was clearly forcing him to abdicate. More importantly, these three girls had always been bold. They would do what they said. Even if they went to the Tianji clan's headquarters, they would not be afraid. Really, if they went, they would not have a chance to come back. In the main hall, Old Devil Mosquito Butcher, Naples, Demon King Mo Wen, Demon Uncle, Dark Turtle Tribe Patriarch Ming Jiao, Mad Mosquito Emperor, and the other higher-ups of the Sky River sector exchanged glances. Their expressions were extremely strange, but no one said a word. Although Old Devil Mosquito Butcher knew Yi Xian's true identity, it was not appropriate for him to interrupt at this time. He feigned ignorance and looked away. While Naples, Demon King Mo Wen, Demon Uncle, Dark Turtle Tribe Patriarch Ming Jiao, Mad Mosquito Emperor, and the others were all secretly wondering if the master of the magic hall was Yi Xian, but it was not appropriate for them to test him verbally. While, today, what they wanted to do was done by the three girls of the Purplish Warbler. This was exactly what they wanted. They were happy to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' work. Their eyes kept darting back and forth between Yi Xian and the three girls, revealing an inexplicable sense of strangeness. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. He could naturally see that the three girls were forcing him to abdicate. This was enough to show that they were very suspicious. Otherwise, with the master of the magic hall and his fierce reputation, how could they test him like this? It could even be said that the three of them were basically certain of Yi Xian's identity. They just had not confirmed it yet, so they were using this method to force him to abdicate. Dang! However, no matter how sure they were, as long as they did not have concrete evidence, Yi Xian could completely ignore them. In this case, the three girls could only be caught in the dark. Without concrete evidence, no matter how suspicious they were, they could not go too far in front of the master of the magic hall. However, the current situation was different. These three girls had grasped the current situation and were threatening Yi Xian. With Yi Xian's understanding of them, even if he didn't accept the weight, these three girls would definitely be able to do what they said. At that time, it would truly be troublesome and would definitely be an even bigger headache. Think. At this point, Yi Xian rolled his eyes gloomily. He turned to look at the upper echelons of the Sky River sector in the main hall. In the end, he sighed faintly and suddenly waved his hand. Whoosh! There was a weak sound of something breaking through the air. Yi Xian immediately shot out a ray of light from his hand. It expanded with the wind and turned into a light screen in the blink of an eye, enveloping the entire main hall. Now, he was a late-stage 8th-rank Desolate Venerable. The restriction light screen that he casually cast was extremely powerful. Most likely, other than peak Desolate Venerables like the Void Giant Tortoise and the Golden Divine Dragon, no one could see through the light screen to see what was happening inside. As the restriction light screen was raised, Yi Xian's face also showed a strong sense of helplessness. After shaking his head and smiling bitterly, his originally tall figure instantly changed. Short. In just a short moment, the majestic master of the magic hall disappeared. In the center of the main hall, a young man from the human clan appeared. It was Yi Xian. Seeing this scene, Old Devil Mosquito Butcher shook his head and smiled bitterly. That. The eyes of Nepolis, Demon King Mo Wen, Demon King Imperial Uncle, Dark Turtle Tribe leader Ming Jiao, Mad Mosquito Emperor, and the others lit up and gasped. Old Man Shen Yuan, Old Man Duanmu, and the others were so excited that their bodies trembled. The master of the magic hall was actually their son-in-law. This joke was too big, but they liked it very much. Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru reacted a little strangely. Seeing Yi Xian take the initiative to show his true appearance, the three girls were stunned at first, but then they exchanged glances. There was a look of disappointment in their eyes, and even a strong sense of sadness. They sighed and turned to leave. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian was stunned. Old Devil Mosquito Butcher sighed again and pulled Yi Xian's sleeve. Why aren't you stopping them? The three girls are sad. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 48-45. Xingbo was not dead. Seeing that the three girls were about to leave in grief, Yi Xian sighed and suddenly said such an irrelevant sentence. However, it had to be said that although these words had nothing to do with the current situation in the hall, their attraction was absolutely shocking. Everyone in the hall was stunned. Even Shen Yuan Ziying and Duanmu, who were about to turn around and leave, were stunned. Xiao Cha and Zhao Qianru also stopped in their tracks as they looked at Yi Xian in shock. Xingbo's reputation was too great. Everyone knew that he was secretly harmed by De and had already fallen for tens of thousands of years. But now, Yi Xian suddenly said that he was fine. This matter was too strange, and everyone's curiosity was piqued. Even the three maidservants were no exception to this. For a moment, they did not even care about the sadness in their hearts just now. They stopped and looked at Yi Xian, obviously waiting for his next words. Moreover, I found the mysterious guest from the home planet not long ago. At this time, Yi Xian had already looked at the Mosquito Butcher, the Mad Mosquito Emperor, and the current Devil Emperor, Amo Tian, because this matter was closely related to the three of them and the clans behind them. No one understood why Yi Xian had just mentioned Xingbo and now suddenly mentioned the so-called mysterious guest from the home planet. However, these two people were both famous. Everyone's expression changed slightly, and they were excited. They were aware of one thing, and that was, that they were about to learn some shocking secret. The home planet was in the primordial void. At this time, Yi Xian spoke again. Every era in the primordial void, there will be 3,000 source nest stars, each of which will give birth to a chaotic demon god. Among the 3,000 chaotic demon gods that were born in the last primordial era, the demon god of power created the world, and the untainted world appeared. At the beginning of the untainted world, there was already a wisp of the untainted heavenly way in the untainted world. However, the heavenly way was not benevolent, and everything was just a straw dog. The entire untainted world was like a purgatory of blood and fire. Because there was slaughter and blood everywhere. Weaker races would not be able to survive for long before they were wiped out. Even some powerful races were constantly on guard. In order to survive, whether they were willing or not, they had to carry out all kinds of bloody killings from time to time. People are born, grow old, get sick and die, and the moon waxes and wanes. Wind, rain, thunder, lightning, earth, fire, and heavenly dipper. The cycle of life, death, and reincarnation had its own unchanging laws of operation. The heavenly Tao was invisible, but it contained the laws of the myriad Tao. In the early days of the primordial era, a group of living beings who were born at the beginning of the world were blessed by the great luck of the world. Almost since the beginning of their birth, they had mastered all kinds of divine abilities that were innate to their bloodlines because of all kinds of heaven-defying talents. The innate ability of his bloodline had been cultivated to the extreme, and he had finally touched one of the 10,000 Taos of the operation of the heavenly Tao. In the various domains represented by their bloodline talents, they could grasp the laws of heaven and earth. It could be said that they were walking on behalf of the heavens. As the number of living beings who were enlightened and respected in the various domains of the laws of heaven and earth increased, some of the ancestors of the primordial era, who were later regarded as evil cultivators and were dissatisfied with the primordial era that was full of bloody killings everywhere. They thought that since the heavenly Tao was formed by the 10,000 Taos of the operation of all things, then if some living beings who each controlled one of the operating laws gathered together and gathered the 10,000 Taos into one, they would not be able to create a new heavenly Tao. What if there was another heavenly Tao? Once this crazy idea was made public, the primordial era was shocked. More and more crazy evil cultivators appeared and gathered together. They left the original world and were entangled in the endless void to create a second heavenly Tao. Just as the evil cultivators were about to control their own laws of heaven and earth, one of the operating laws of heaven and earth merged and entered the stage of reorganization. In the end, they actually created a man-made heavenly Tao, and it appeared in the form of a baby. The righteous cultivators and guardians who chased after them through space and time finally led their armies to approach. A battle of the largest scale since the beginning of the world began immediately. This unprecedented battle lasted for 10,000 years. During this time, countless creatures of the primordial era participated. The entire primordial era was affected by the flames of war. There were countless mighty figures of the primordial era and supreme beings of the primordial era who participated. In fact, even the cold and ruthless heavenly Tao was involved. The cruel and merciless untainted heavenly way of the untainted land descended at the end of the war. At that time, the artificial heavenly way created by the ancestors of the untainted land, who were known as evil cultivators, was obviously far from mature. Even so, he still fought with the untainted heavenly way of the untainted land several times in the war. There was victory and defeat. In the end, after 10,000 years, this unprecedented battle finally came to an end. The result of the battle was that both sides suffered losses. Both sides suffered countless casualties. At the final juncture, the primordial era's heavenly Tao and the heavenly Tao baby fought with all their might. An earth-shattering explosion sounded in the sky, and the primordial era's heavenly Tao was severely injured. The heavenly Tao baby was beheaded by his palm and turned into a headless corpse that contained evil thoughts. In the end, it turned into a ray of light and shot away, disappearing without a trace. The final full-power attack of the two supreme experts of the primordial era in the battle completely shattered the entire vast primordial era, turning it into countless fragments of various sizes. Endless void turbulence blew through the void cracks of different sizes. It blew through and destroyed countless races. In the end, the primordial era's heavenly Tao, which was so shattered that even the heavily injured primordial era's heavenly Tao was unable to reform it, swept in all directions. From then on, the unprecedented battle of the primordial era that had lasted for 10,000 years finally came to an end. The once incomparably glorious primordial era had also completely collapsed. This was the beginning and end of the unprecedented battle of the primordial era. After that battle, the primordial era's heavenly Tao and its subordinate camp went into hibernation. As for the heavenly Tao baby, it turned into a corpse lamp tattoo and attached itself to my body during a chance encounter. As he spoke, the robe on the left side of Yi Xian's chest disappeared, revealing the corpse lamp tattoo, shocking everyone in the hall. It was precisely because of this that the new primordial era was about to begin. Before that, the unparalleled battle of the primordial era that had not truly ended would descend upon the current world along with the primordial era. This battle would also be the complete end of the previous primordial era. Once it came, countless living beings would fall and turn into ashes. Only a few lucky people could protect some people and live to the next primordial era after the final battle of the primordial era. The opening of the Yuan dynasty, and this was also the reason why I had no choice but to leave the three main planes of the current world to find a path and grow up quickly. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. M. Chapter 48-46. The secrets that Yi Xian revealed made everyone in the hall intoxicated. They finally understood why Yi Xian had disappeared for nearly 100 years. The heavenly Tao infant that had been beheaded back then was actually in his body. Just based on this point alone, he had no way to avoid it. Moreover, although Yi Xian did not say it explicitly, everyone could tell that the reason he wanted to become stronger was to protect the people around him in the impending eldritch apocalypse calamity. Perhaps, everyone in the hall was one of them. Thinking of this, everyone felt emotional and sighed inwardly. He had shouldered too much all these years. Even the three girls, Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru, looked much more relaxed. However, they still held a grudge against the 7 gorgeous cultivators. After a short silence, everyone in the hall gradually digested everything that Yi Xian had said. At this moment, the demonic imperial uncle suddenly asked, "But what does all this have to do with Xingbo and that mysterious guest from the mother planet?" "Good question." Yi Xian nodded and smiled faintly. Then he continued, "The so-called mother planet is the auspicious source of the Eldritch world after the beginning of the last primordial era. When the Eldritch world was completely destroyed in the Great War, it flew back to the primordial void. Before that, a mysterious expert left the mother planet. Later on, after the Eldritch world collapsed, he came to the 3 galaxies tens of thousands of years ago. He was that mysterious guest from the Mother Planet. The guest from the Mother Planet had a total of 5 followers and descendants of his race. 3 of them were human descendants and 2 were ferocious beasts. One of the ferocious beasts was a weeping soul blood ape, and the other was a desolate fierce mosquito. Yi Xian turned to look at the Mad Mosquito Emperor and said, "That desolate era fierce mosquito is the father of the Mad Mosquito Emperor's true body. I saw him not long ago in the primordial chaos starfield." Hearing this, the Mad Mosquito Emperor's expression changed greatly, but he did not say anything because anyone could see that Yi Xian had not finished speaking. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly sighed faintly and turned to look at the Mad Mosquito Emperor. A wisp of anger appeared on his face as he gritted his teeth and said, "Mosquito Emperor, your original body has already entered a source hive star and will obtain a new one when the next primordial era begins." The primordial providence of the primordial era turned into a powerful chaos fiend god. As for your father, the desolate era ferocious mosquito, he possessed his own grandson, my sworn brother Xue Ben. I don't know where he is now. This is all my fault. I didn't take good care of my sworn brother Xue Ben. Screech. When Yi Xian said this, the Mad Mosquito Emperor flew into a rage. He raised his head and roared, an incomparably dense killing intent spreading from his body. After a long time, he gradually calmed down and said in a muffled voice, "This is not your fault, but Xue Ben will be fine. That old thing, if this emperor has the chance to enter the primordial chaos void in the future, I will definitely kill him with my own hands." It was not good for the crowd to say anything about this matter. They didn't even know how to persuade him. They all looked at each other, and the atmosphere instantly became strange. At this moment, Yi Xian's voice sounded again. This time, he turned to look at Old Ghost Mosquito Butcher, the other 2 human race pursuers, one of them left behind Old Ghost Mosquito Butcher's original body. It was also at that time that your original body was also possessed by his own father. His whereabouts are also unknown. Roar! As soon as he finished speaking, Old Ghost Mosquito Butcher immediately raised his head and roared. He stomped his feet and roared like thunder. Bastard, old bastard, even possessing his own son, what the hell? As for the follower who left behind the demonic bloodline, he and the other person have already died in the fierce mosquito forbidden land in the primordial chaos void, and their souls have been scattered. Yi Xian did not pay attention to Old Ghost Mosquito Butcher. Instead, he turned to look at the demonic imperial uncle Mo Wentian and said such words. "It's better to be dead." To his surprise, Mo Wentian did not care. There was a look of relief on his face as he muttered, "That guy left behind the demonic bloodline and didn't care about anything else." From the character of the other followers from the Mother Planet, I'm afraid they are also like that. They are not good people. This was an open-minded attitude. The bloodline ancestor was dead and turned into ashes, but he was still rejoicing and applauding. Yi Xian and the higher-ups of the Sky River sector in the hall were also speechless. They shook their heads and smiled bitterly. The true identity of the visitor from the Mother Planet is still unknown, but one thing is certain, and that is that he is in cahoots with the primeval Heaven's Eye. After a short pause, Yi Xian continued, "At that time, I was hiding in the distance and saw with my own eyes that the primeval Heaven's Eye descended and helped him break through the primordial chaos barrier membrane and enter the Milky Way star sector where the Mother Planet was protected. This is a huge hidden danger, and there will be consequences." At that time, several of his followers self-destructed in order to accumulate power and send it into the Milky Way star sector protected by the primordial chaos barrier membrane. Those who died, and those who did not die, possessed their blood relatives because that was the best way to recover. It was also the fastest way to recover. I see. Hearing this, Old Devil Mosquito Butcher also showed a look of understanding. But then, as if he suddenly thought of something, he asked, "But what does all this have to do with Xingbo, the technological pioneer of the human clan? Why did you say that he is not dead?" This was the question that everyone in the hall was concerned about. At this moment, as Old Devil Mosquito Butcher asked this question, everyone's eyes flashed and they all focused on Yi Xian's face. How could it not have anything to do with him? Yi Xian's face darkened instantly. He gnashed his teeth and said, "The so-called visitor from the Mother Planet is Xingbo." What? That's impossible. Hiss. This is a shocking secret. Xingbo? A visitor from the Mother Planet? This is too shocking. He is actually a person. If all this is true, then, what on earth does Xingbo want to do? He deceived the entire human clan. He must have ulterior motives. As soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, a commotion broke out in the hall. Everyone trembled violently and exclaimed in horror. The three girls, Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru, opened their mouths wide and looked stunned. They had never expected such news. As for me, the reason why I suddenly brought this up when you three girls were about to leave is because, more accurately speaking, it's because Xingbo is also related to my 7 maidservants. At this point, Yi Xian turned to look at the three girls, Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru. He smiled faintly and said, "Actually, you've seen one of them before. She was the corpse ancestor, Hidorigami, who woke up from her slumber in the domain of Shadow Devil in the second universe and saved my life." Hearing this, the three girls were stunned for a moment and then immediately understood. Clearly,